right, let's call the meeting, order of the meeting for Spark City Council on Monday, July 8th?
Wow.
January 8th.
Mayor Lawson,
Here.
council members Abbott,
Here.
Vanderwell,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
Bybee,
Here.
Dare,
Here.
City Attorney Duncan, Acting City Manager Crawford.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have our invocation by Councilman Dare.
Would you please stand? Lord, we come to you and we thank you for today, and I thank you for this amazing country we get to serve in, and especially this particular city. Thank you for the city of Sparks and all of the work that goes into it. Particularly, Lord, we have so many city workers who have been doing so much just to make sure our city's safe through the snow. Lord, I thank you for our first responders. I thank you for each of them who we have and sacrificed their time. Please keep them safe. Our veterans, Lord, and with us having youth in the room today, Lord, I do particularly ask that you give us wisdom, Lord. Each thing we do is so much bigger than this decision we make. We're paving a way for future generations, and I do pray, Lord, that you give us guidance. In your name we pray. Amen.
We remain standing for the pledge of allegiance. Ms. Vanderbilt, will you lead us?
Yes, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to public comment. If you want to make a comment in the public, please fill out a card and give it to our clerk. Let's start with Pam Dar. And that'll be followed by Commissioner Mark Clark.
I'm sorry? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and fellow city council members. Didn't plan on being here, but something caught my attention that I'm not sure you have been made aware of, and it's a big deal. It has to do with the future of Truckee Meadows and this land purchase deal. I've been paying a little bit of attention, but I'm busy like everybody else. I've noticed people have been trying to get answers and concerns, but they don't feel like they've gotten all the answers. And this is a big, big deal. I went into so many rabbit holes this weekend, I had to walk away. But the one thing that stood out was these current letters, because some of the things I saw were probably already resolved, but these are current. And especially the one from the 3 U.S. senators, 2 of which are from a neighboring state. And they're asking very important questions that I believe we deserve, and you deserve, to get answers before we go further with this lands deal arrangement. They're looking for answers. So I don't know if you've seen the letter from the senators, and if you have you read the questions? And if you read the questions, have you received answers from these questions? I believe as a community, we deserve answers. You deserve answers as a leader. It'll make us a stronger community and make us have a bright future ahead. I love living here. I want to know what effects this land purchase deal would affect my living here. And I'm sure, well, not just me, everybody's living here because we love where we live. And I'm sure you love being here too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting there. So I'd love to have you empowered, us empowered, so we make the right decisions. So I would love for you to maybe separate that from the consent items and get some information to us. And I'm sure or discuss it so we know what you know about these questions. I hope I worded that correctly. I had notes. It was a lot of research, but thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Okay, Commissioner Clark, followed by Chris Garvey.
Thank you, Mayor Lawson and council people. Mike Clark, for the record. I'm here as a citizen, not here as a commissioner, but I'm looking at your agenda, and I thought it was worth coming down and talking to you about that. First of all, I'd like to salute you for not having metal detectors and and a lot of things to have to jump through to come to a meeting. I think you're the only municipality here in northern Nevada, or at least Washoe County, that we don't have metal detectors and body searches and taking your belts off and handing over your phones. Got to do that at Reno, have to do that at the county, and it's just nice to be able to walk in and talk to your elected officials. But a particular attention, I'd like to direct your attention to item 8.5 on the agenda, spending another $90,000 to augment professional services for the consulting work done on the lands bill. You know, I get a presentation from the folks that you've hired, and quite frankly, they were showing me maps from the last go-round of this, and, you know, I just didn't think it was being handled properly, and it's just unfortunate to see taxpayers' money being spent, good money after bad. So I would like to see that reduced or eliminated if I had a vote, but I don't here. So I just wanted to give you my opinion. I think it's a lot of extra money for that, and I don't think you're getting your money's worth. Thank you.
Okay. Chris Garvey, followed by Bill Wagner.
Chris Garvey for the record. I'm speaking in opposition to items 8.4 and 8.5. These are contract renewals for Barrett Resources and SB Statistics Consulting. In 2019, the city hired Barrett Resources, paying them $90,000 a year to lobby and drum up support for the Truckee Meadows Land Act being pushed by the mayor. Over the last 5 years, taxpayers have been paying Barrett over $350,000. And here they are again at the trough demanding another $90,000 from us. If that wasn't enough, in 2023, the city decided they needed a second firm, SB Statistics, or as they refer to themselves in the backup material, SBS, to do pretty much the same work. And of course, they get paid $90,000 a year too. So what exactly do the taxpayers get for their money? For 6 years of effort and almost $500,000, we are assured that they are making progress and talking to stakeholders in the government and in the business community. Who exactly are these nameless individuals? I guess the voters don't need to know, but I can tell you it's not the rank and file residents of Sparks, because I've personally spoken with hundreds of Sparks voters, and they either strongly oppose the Land Act or know nothing about it. The lack of accountability and transparency around these two contracts is concerning, and it only gets worse the more you find out. When taxpayers read about these contracts in the Pecan Press and then see a picture of the mayor having dinner with Chris Barrett at Anthony's Chop House, it's concerning. When you learn that it appears that SB Statistics, under a different name, helped run the mayor's election campaign in 2022, and then 2 months later is awarded a contract for $90,000 a year from the city, it's concerning. To say the least, it leaves a lot of question. But one thing does seem clear. Like the saying goes, it doesn't suck in Sparks to be a friend with Ed Lawson. Why didn't these contracts come forward as bills? Without any information, we're left to speculate. They need to be pulled from the consent agenda and voted down. I want to remind everyone, this is an election year, and Councilman Anderson, Dare, and Abbott, the voters are watching. I'm Chris Garvey, Ward 1, registered voter, for the record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wagner, followed by Renee Rosentes. Did I get that correct?
Yes, my subject is Mark Lawson versus the Sparks City Council. To Mr. Ed Ed Lawson and CC member. For the record, my name is Bill Wagner. I personally believe that Mark probably owes his attorney $100,000 to $125,000. So I'm saying, please, please, please do not pay the man $600,000 Mark is asking for. Just for him, for what he earned. We should just pay for what he earned in his short term as fire chief. My reasons for this request follows. Mark had no intention of saying anything about illegal drug business. If Mark had said something to Neil Kay, he would have ended the interview at that point in time. Thank you. Mark was asked to resign, which Mark agreed to, but changed his mind. This is why we need two people to be involved in this high interview process. Our hardworking taxpayers do not need the SCC to spend this large amount of wasteful money. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Renee Resentes, is that correct? Am I saying it correct?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and all the representatives here. Thank you, it's good to be here. I'm not really all that prepared to talk about the lands bill. My name is Renee Resentes, 6110. But I'm very interested in it. My family lives out in Palomino, and I used to live out there, but I have moved. What I have learned through Pam Dar, because she's talked to me about it every day this week, and there's concern that we don't know enough about the bill. And so I would like to ask that you hold off any action on it until you know what it's all about, and you can tell us what it's all about. I would appreciate that. Because in the long run, it doesn't sound like it's going to help the citizens here or the tribes. So it sounds like it could be a land grab. So I would really like you to look into that, make sure that the citizens are protected from that. We have people that lived here in this area for years and go back in ancestry, and we don't want that to be jeopardized. So, oh, and the letters that Pam gave you, would you please read those? I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the public wishing to speak at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. I'm looking for approval of the agenda. Mr. Anderson,
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Mr. Dare.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We're gonna pull it on consent.
Okay.
So I need you to vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, I'm looking for an approval of the minutes. Ms. Vanderwell,
Move to approve the minutes of the Sparks City Council meeting for December 11th, 2023.
Mr. Abbott.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, announcements, presentation, recognition items, and items of special interest. Boards and commissions vacancy announcement, Sparks Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. Chief.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lawson, members of City Council. Chris Crawford, your acting city manager for the record. There is currently one vacancy on the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee to fill a partial term ending November 30th of 2024. This vacancy is for a performing arts representative. Members of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee must be a Washoe County resident, possess a full understanding of being an arts advocate, and have 5 years or more experience as an arts advocate. Applications will be accepted until January 12th, 2024 at 5 p.m. Persons interested in serving on these committees should complete a community service application online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us/get involved. Simply complete the volunteer application form and hit submit. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. 7.2, commendation, the Sparks High School Boys Varsity Soccer Team. Mr. Abbott.
Yes, sir. I will read this, and then we'll pass it over to you, Coach, and your team.
Yeah, Coach, come on up and we're gonna have you say a few words afterwards to the millions of people watching.
Whereas the Sparks High School Boys Varsity Soccer Team, coached by Jose Chavez Spania, is the 2023-2024 Northern Nevada 5A Regional Champion, having just completed their third full year of 5A Division play. And whereas the coaching staff of this year's Railroaders team was named Coaching Staff of the Year in 5A Division play, and are all Sparks High School alumni, serving as excellent examples of the motto, once a Railroader, always a Railroader. And whereas the team scored 79 goals this year with only 15 goals against, led by a group of seniors who started with the team as freshmen, winning 2 regional titles. And whereas players Valentine Leanin and Fernando Chavez were named Midfielder of the Year and Defender of the Year, respectively, and 9 of the team's 23 other players received All-League or All-State champions recognition. Now, therefore, on behalf of Mayor Ed Lawson, the Mayor of the City of Sparks, we do hereby proclaim with the City Council and commending the Sparks High School Boys Varsity Soccer Team for their achievements, including winning the 2023-2024 Northern Nevada 5A Regional Championship.
Go ahead, Coach.
Just a huge thank you to the City of Sparks, obviously Councilman Donald Abbott. Honestly, it has everything to do with these young men behind me. They're dedicated to the program, their sacrifice, their willingness to give, their willingness to be here today. It's something that, we try to preach, and the discipline behind what we do. So I'm just excited for them, excited for our seniors that are moving on, and just thankful to the underclassmen that hopefully will carry on that tradition moving forward. And we just hope to continue to bring pride and continue that tradition to the City of Sparks and to Sparks High School.
Thanks, Coach. Donald?
Yeah, and hey, Coach, if you could just elaborate on what makes us unique playing in the 5A as a 3A school.
So basically, we had to petition to be moved up into the 5A. We are technically a 3A school. I do believe we are the only actual 3A school. It's defined by how many students you have at the school, and so we had to petition to be moved up. It was curious enough to me. I've been coaching for a long time. I've been there since 2011, and I just reflected on the fact that these guys are the senior class is the first class that started off with the 5A, so they don't really know what the 3A was about or how we did in the 3A. But that also goes to show the tenacity behind, their dedication to what we were already doing in the 3A and continuously showing that improvement in the 5A. So for us, it's just special to be able to continue to compete at this level. We felt confident that we could compete at this level. And I'm just excited that these guys get recognized the way they do, not just with the all-league selections, but around the community. Like I tell them, I win big when I see them show up into a setting like this, and they're respectful, they're quiet. To me, those are the bigger wins as a coach, is wherever we go, these guys are, they bite into the things that I ask them to do. For me, it's more important outside the soccer field. It's the classroom, it's in the community. And that's my biggest hope for them, is to show them that, as long as you do what you're supposed to, good things happen for good people. So, yeah.
And I will echo that to all you guys. I know many of you through your season, so you guys around the school, and thank you for being here. You guys are definitely respectful. You always call me by my name. You don't say, hey, photographer or something out there at the fields. But, we are, I know Chava and I all speak for both of us. We're very proud of you guys. Obviously you did some amazing things on the soccer field, but there's Coach Chava did some amazing things when he was on the soccer field too, but he's also doing amazing things post-high school. And we hope and expect the same out of you guys. This is just one accomplishment of many for all of you of being Railroaders. So thank you for being here, and that's all I got.
Anyone else?
I was going to ask a question. Could we maybe have the seniors stand? And do you have any that are going to move on, maybe play the next level in junior college or college?
Yeah, where's my seniors at? Go ahead and stand up, guys. Got a few. Yep.
All right.
I don't know if we have any of them fully committed to a particular program yet. I know they're speaking to quite a bit of coaches. We've had interest from Lake Tahoe Community College, Truckee Meadows Community College. I have the blessing to say that a couple of these guys, Valentin, Valentin, raise your hand. So Valentin has been named the most valuable player 2 years in a row now as in his position. I've seen a couple of these guys, they've gone out and played outside of the U.S., so I know he recently spent some time in Portugal, so along with some other of my seniors. So there's quite a bit of talent. I'm hoping that they can take that elsewhere and really show off who they really are. But like anything, we tell them student first, student athlete, student comes first. And so that's part of, the thing that I'm most proud of is, again, we really didn't have a whole lot of academic issues with this group, and especially this group of seniors that really has led the way for these underclassmen to see what it's about. So I think that's super important. Yeah.
Congratulations, you guys did an amazing job, and it's always nice to recognize, our youth, but really, and I guess I'm a little biased, I was an athlete, and my kids were my husband, and really the value of athletics and all the things it teaches you that you take into life, and you take it into a job, or you take it to college, or you take it when you become, parents and family, you have your own family, all these values that you have from hard work to always giving 110% is something that is the most valuable other than how you place on the athletic field. And so I really think that determination and work ethic that you develop as an athlete can't be replaced. It's priceless. Congratulations. You guys have done an awesome job. You've made Sparks proud.
Very good. Yeah, you guys, it's amazing to be a 5A in a 3A school. That is a huge deal. People don't realize just how large of a jump that is. And that's just awesome. So congratulations again. Good luck to you seniors. Get out there and kick some butt. Thank you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
It's huge. Thank you, Coach. All right, well, we still have a quorum, so why don't we go ahead and read the Radon proclamation?
Sure.
Do you want to come on up? And Christopher will read to you.
So I've had the honor of reading another proclamation or giving you another one at the Health District, but we're honored that you're here each year and definitely sharing this. It says, whereas the great state of Nevada, known for its natural beauty and diverse landscapes, is home to an abundance of surface uranium, which is harnessed for various beneficial issues, including nuclear energy production, medical applications, and scientific research. And whereas while uranium has beneficial applications, it also poses potential dangers when it naturally breaks down into radon gas. And whereas radon is a colorless, odorless, naturally occurring radioactive gas that is the primary cause of lung cancer among non-smokers and the second leading cause of lung cancer for smokers. And whereas many City of Sparks residents do not know about radon, but their awareness of this risk is essential for the safety and health of their families. And whereas the United States Environment Protection Agency estimates 21,000 people in the United States die each year from lung cancer caused by indoor radon exposure. And whereas radon kills more people than secondhand smoke, drunk driving, and home fires combined. And whereas any home in Sparks may have elevated levels of radon, even if neighboring homes do not. And living in a home with an average radon level of 4 picocuries, I hope I said that right, per liter of air poses a similar risk of developing lung cancer as smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day. And whereas testing is the only way to know if a home has an elevated radon level. Testing is easy and inexpensive, and homes with elevated radon levels can be fixed once identified. And whereas University of Nevada, Reno Extension's Nevada Radon Education Program, the Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency support efforts to encourage all City of Sparks residents to test their homes for radon, mitigate elevated levels of radon, and have new homes built with radon-reducing materials and features. Therefore, Ed Lawson, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, does hereby proclaim January 2024 as National Radon Action Month. Congratulations. Thanks for all the work you do.
Thanks, Christine. Go ahead. Give us your name for the record first.
Chris Kelly. I am the program manager for the Nevada Radon Education Program, which is run out of the Extension Office for UNR. I really want to thank you for letting me appear in front of you and for signing the proclamation. Not all of our government entities did that this year, so I really want to thank you all for allowing me. And also to let you know that I receive radon reports, test results on a quarterly basis. And last week, shockingly, I got test results that I had to double check with the lab to make sure they were accurate. So the highest reading that is ever, the highest test result ever in the state of Nevada has been 195, and that was in Reno. Last week, we found out that there were numerous 150s in Spanish Springs. Also, the highest to date in Sparks was in the low 20s, and we just got one a couple miles from my house in East Sparks that was in the 30s. So the more testing that we do, the more we find out that radon really is a concern. And when we're talking about building more homes in this area, I would hope that somebody would take up the policy that all new homes needed to be built with radon mitigation systems in them. Most states require that. In Nevada, we do not have any regulation. So if there's anybody looking for a cause, I would love to work with you on changing that in the city of Sparks.
Thank you. Questions from the council? No? Okay, Chris, thank you very much. All right.
Come on over for a picture, though.
Where do I get a copy of this picture?
Right there.
Just you, huh? All right.
Should I ask real quick, because that's something people should know. I know she's finished.
Go ahead.
Hey, Chris, real quick, I just realized normally when we get this presentation, we get, I know, I'm sorry, behind you, that we get information on test kits and availability. In fact, when you or somebody brought us test kits that I use in my home, where do they go to the extension service for the university, or where would people get test kits so that they know what if their homes are safe or not?
Thank you for asking me. I forgot to bring that up. We have a new interactive map on the extension website. So the UNR website, and do a search for radon, and an interactive map will come up so people can see where they can pick up a free test kit closest to them. And we didn't arrange to have test kits picked up at this location, but there is a doctor's office that is on Prater Way that has them, the extension offices, quite a few different places. There's some real estate offices that have them.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to consent items. Anyone wishing to pull a consent item? If not, I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Anderson.
I move to approve the consent items 8.1 through 8.1 through 8.8 is submitted, with the exception of items 8.4 and 8.5, which I would like to have heard individually, please.
Okay. Ms. Vanderwell.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, 8.5? 4 and 5, okay. 8.4, John, are you ready to talk about these?
Good afternoon, Mayor Lawson, members of the council. John Martini, your assistant city manager. Mayor Lawson, with your permission, I'd like to do the presentation for both items 8.4 and 8.5 concurrently. All right, both of the items are requests for spending authority for continued professional services related to outreach work needed to support Sparks' interests in the Truckee Meadows Public Lands Management Act, which we call the Lands Bill. So specifically to item 8.4, which is Barrett Resources, this seeks approval of an expenditure of up to $90,000 for this calendar year. The city has retained Barrett Resources since May of 2019 for outreach to our local stakeholder groups, again, to support the proposed lands bill. Item 8.5 is with SB Strategic Consulting Incorporated. This item also seeks expenditure authority of up to $90,000 for professional services related to outreach to our federal congressional delegation, again, in support of Sparks' interests in the lands bill. Representatives from Barrett Resources and SB Consulting are in the audience with us today and are available to answer any questions. And as always, I'm available to answer questions as well. And that wraps up my presentation.
Any questions for John before we bring up the? Okay. Scott and Chris, why don't you guys come on up? You heard the questions. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Attorney, Mr. Acting City Manager, City Clerk, for your record, Chris Barrett, Barrett Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is not the first time I've been here in front of you to address my contract with the city for this important item. But also in front of you a number of times of keeping you up to date of current on the status of this bill as we move through Congress. By way of background, I think it's important, and I'm sure you are aware of some of the background of the lands bill, but I think it's important to make it part of the record for why we're pursuing the Truckee Meadows Public Land Management Act. This just didn't start as a whim or, hey, this would be cool to do. It's a good policy that you all have addressed for this community, not only for the city of Sparks, but for the region. We're running out of land in this community. We're having a hard time dealing with the growth that's before us because of the great quality of life that we have here. We have this thing to the east of us called the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, and everyone wants to be here. They want a part of Reno. They want a part of Northern Nevada. They want a part of Sparks. They want a part of Washoe County. So how are we going to deal with this, the continued increase in the employment numbers for these new businesses that come to Trick, that come to Northern Nevada, and those businesses who want to expand? Like Tesla, like Panasonic. We've heard numbers of upwards of $50,000 employees over the next 5 years. How are we going to deal with that? The lands bill is how we're going to deal with that. In 2021, in an effort to validate the local developers saying, we are running out of land, what are we going to do? This is a crisis. We brought the our congressional delegation to the forefront on this issue, and they said, what do? We said, we need to get this lands bill done. So we commissioned a study. This is a study that was similarly done to the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. It validated that we are running out of land. That was a study that was paid for by one of the business groups that we formed at the cost of almost $100,000. Not a cost to the city, not a cost to the taxpayers, but it was raised through local funds, private funds. So once the study was complete and paid for, this is what we learned about the status of the land in our area. Industrial, we're going to run out of land by 2041. B, we'd be out of residential land by 2027. And we're basically already out of office and retail land. That was in 2022. After this, we said to ourselves, okay, what do we do with this information? We said, we need to go out and inform the public, the business community, the residents, why we're doing this. We educated the senator's office, we educated Congressman Amade's office, and we went out and continued to educate the business community. For the past 3 years, we've been out talking to people. Some of these audiences have been as high as over 150 people. Some of them have been less than a handful in someone's conference room wanting to know what is going on with the lands bill, what are the benefits, and what can we do to try to help get this thing passed. While the briefing sessions took place, we also shared the feedback with the congressional folks again, sharing with them the positive feedback and the general support from the business community. One of the things, let me back up a little bit here. One of the reasons why we went down this path was we saw the increase of housing coming. Our kids cannot afford to live here. They can't afford to buy a house. This land that's going to come on the market will hopefully drive the cost of those houses and lands down. But we didn't stop there after we talked to the congressional offices and the general community, business community. We meet continuously, and we have been, and we continue to do over the next year. We didn't stop there. We continued the outreach program and to any and all stakeholders, the obvious stakeholders and the not so obvious ones. Through these efforts, we have the support of the Truckee Meadows Public Land Management Act, agreeing with a purpose of having part in it. So where do we have today that we didn't have 3 years ago, that we didn't have a year ago? We have a broad-based support of business, a broad-based support for the lands bill. We have resolutions of support from Washoe County, Story County, and this body. We have an MOU from the Reno Sparks Indian Colony for protecting their lands to the east of Sparks. Do you know how hard it is to get an agreement with the Indians? Through your good faith and the good faith of the Indians, that was a monumental task done almost immediately. It was incredible on how fast Chairman Menendez and the mayor came together and said, these are our differences, let's sit down, let's talk about them, let's resolve them, this is the importance, and it was done in a matter of weeks, not a matter of months, not a matter of years. It's done, signed, and it's in the file. So as we moved on, we recognized the momentum that we're gaining, and we said, well, we really need to focus on the federal side here. That's not my forte. Mine is the outreach. And thanks to each and every one of you for your participation, your ideas, your request. Reach out to this stakeholder. Have you talked to this stakeholder? What about this stakeholder? We've done that, and we will continue to do that. That's what I do. We're fortunate to have the expertise of Scott Bensing to my right here, who he and I are working together on this lands bill. And what we have, thanks to Scott, working closely with Congressman Amade's office and Senator Rosen's office, we have draft legislation ready to be introduced. Scott.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Scott Bensing, president of SB Strategic Consulting, for the record. Just by way of a little bit of background, we started doing lands bills in Nevada and in the West probably 25 years ago. At the time, I was Senator Enson's chief of staff. Since then, we've done probably 6 to 8, with Congressman Amade having pieces of 3 or 4 in the mix currently. Those bills, from the first one, which was the Southern Nevada SNPLMA Act, up through a number of rural counties we did, all had kind of one thing in common, in that they are difficult to do even under the best of circumstances where we have a bill that is that all the controversies have been worked out of. We're still a slave to the congressional calendar. Some of those bills have their hearings, are ready to be voted and sent to the White House, and even then they sit for 2-3 years sometimes, depending on what vehicles are moving. This political environment hasn't gotten any more friendly to that cause, but given the functions of the bill that deal with disposing federal land for development, conveyance of federal land to local entities, and also protections of environmental lands and wilderness and national conservation areas, it's got to be a federal piece. So we bring together what is the kind of local vision of what we want done throughout the Truckee Meadows, and probably upwards of 60 very diverse stakeholders. And it was kind of clear to me, we come to start to coalesce around something that's successful when you saw here in your chambers and also in the county chambers, we had environmental groups stand up and support. We had developer groups, EDON and others, home builders, affordable home builders come together and say they support, and some construction unions came out and support. I don't know if you have many controversial votes where you can put a group like that together all in support of something, but that's what we have. When we talk about over the last year, Chris had mentioned a few things. I want to talk a little about the MOU between the city and the Reno Sparks Tribe. That was not something that was a recommendation or a requirement of any of the federal delegation. That was something Sparks did on its own. And the reason I believe that's as important as it is, because when we look at the lands east of Sparks, north of I-80, which comprise a good amount of the proposed disposal area, they were just in that area. There were probably 24 stakeholders who were very vocal over the last 2 years, I'll say. The biggest piece of that, at least in my mind, was the tribe, and that's something that lands have been studied. They've had all kinds of experts go out to kind of determine what's there, what needs to be protected. And to the credit of the city of Sparks, early on, I think there was a concession that ought to take priority, that some of those lands, some of the most developable lands in that area had an interest that the tribe had a critical interest in. And we were able to have that be the basis of what is, I think, a pretty monumental memorandum of understanding, which lays the foundation for how those lands will be protected and or developed, as laid out in the MOU. That will be mirrored for the most part in the Senate bill. So that was, I think, a critical piece to moving us forward. So again, over the last year, we had a draft bill introduced by Senator Rosen in the spring. She laid out, I believe, 90 days for comments. That comment period extended well beyond those 90 days for everybody to either in person or online or call to say this is what I like or don't like about the maps for conservation, about the disposal areas. We had hoped that bill would be introduced before Christmas time. I can tell you, I just spoke with Senator Rosen's folks not long ago. That introduction is imminent. We go back to the 60 stakeholders who were involved in this. There was one, I think, remaining issue that had to be worked out, and I'm told it has been worked out. The U.S. Senate will convene today, this evening. So they will be in this week. So my hope is that draft will be introduced in the Senate well, and we'll be given a number, and we'll have something very concrete to work off of. The other pieces of this, in addition to those stakeholders, I think another key group are companies with interests and employees out at TRIC. We all know of the complications in their commute on I-80. their future growth is much dependent on being able to, one, find employees, and two, get them to work on time. And I would argue as important, if not more important, to get them from work back home so they can be with their families after. And I think they view this as a critical piece to their continued growth. So what we're doing, again, east of Sparks, north of I-80, is trying to grow our land, grow our residential impact, other businesses that can help trick toward where the jobs are. I would say just briefly, when we look at where we go from here, we expect the Rosen bill will be introduced imminently. Our next step in the Senate is to go before the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate to get a hearing on the bill. We're fortunate in that our other senator, Senator Cortez Masto, is chair of that committee right now. We've talked with her staff, and they are very anxious to get moving along with that hearing in the Senate. Consequently, on the House side, as you probably are well aware, Congressman Amodei has had a lands bill package that he has introduced and passed the last two Congresses, I believe. That bill is introduced, and he'll be having a hearing in the House of Representatives, and having just had a meeting with the congressman maybe 6 weeks ago. We kind of worked through what that strategy looks like, and I think what it looks like is once we get hearings in the Senate and hearings in the House, then we're kind of in search of a vehicle to put this bill and a number of bills on in a lands package, if you will, to get them passed and signed into law. And I think those will all be pre-conferenced once they get through their hearings. So we'll be looking for a bill that can pass Congress and be signed by the president, which more and more seems to be things like the National Defense Authorization Act, which we've passed lands bills on before, or funding resolutions that seem to be coming down every 3 to 4 months, emergency funding resolutions. So with that, I will conclude my remarks and be happy to answer any questions you have.
Just for clarification, talk about how the disposal of the land works from the auction period and where the money goes and all that.
Will do. The land designated for disposal, that is to say sale, as the way the bill is written and as the way lands bills have worked in the past, and we expect this to follow suit, albeit without firm language now. There's always things subject to change. Generally, it's worked like this. The county and the BLM will determine of all that land that is designated for disposal, the county and BLM will together determine which parcels will be offered at auction in any given year. What that has traditionally looked like is, let's say we have, of all the disposal land, let's just say there's 14,000 acres. Obviously, all that is not going to come up for auction at one time. There are land that we know through our outreach that has bidders who are ready to bid today. And we will look to, obviously, with coordinating with municipalities, make sure that the land we have a bidder on, and the land that is designated or at least recognized as prime land for affordable housing, as an example, would be a priority. As that land comes up for auction and is sold, the money is divvied up in 3 different phases. Again, this has been, with minimal exception, the way we've done about the dozen lands bills in the state. 5% goes to the state education fund, 10% normally goes to Washoe County. This 10% in the Rosen bill, we understand, will go specifically for the Truckee River, beautification of the Truckee River, which, as best I know, the first time that there would be a sustaining funding source for the river, not one-time appropriations. The other 85% goes to a Department of Interior account that is set aside for projects in the state, and really more specifically in the county in which the land is sold. Some examples of that are upgrades to trails, purchase of other environmentally sensitive land. That has been in the past somewhat contentious. We can't just grab that money and go use it to offset other federal funds, but I'll give you an example. The SNPLMA bill, Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act bill, had a provision that allowed money to be spent at Lake Tahoe. And if you remember, Incline Lake property was privately owned. It was the money that purchased it and protected it was from the SNPLMA bill, as an example of how some of this money could be spent. Does that answer your question, sir?
Okay, questions from the council? Mr. Dare?
So I want to say thank you to Chris and Scott and all of our public comments. And to our public comments, I think one of the things, this is a forum of conversation. That's what we get to do here. I do want to make sure that people are aware that we've had this conversation in front of here in public many times. And so it is important that all of our constituents understand that. I also know that it was referred to, so I'll bring it up. Yeah, there's a few of us running for office, but I think we're all continually there to be an example, to hopefully lead, to help educate, to help bring things in front of our community. And so whether we're running for office or not, it's an important day. And so I thank you for each of our voters watching and those who are paying attention, because I think if they are watching, then they very much know that this is a conversation we've been having. I also would say this is an investment into the future when I'm not even here anymore. This is not something that we will see while I'm in office. I say I hopefully get to serve another 4, but if I do not, whatever happens, it's to happen in the next 10, 20, whatever years that this comes. However, we have to be strategic and really look forward for our city to be sustainable. We know this, that the whole state, our cities are not sustainable because of our tax property. That's a whole other conversation, but it's something that people want to do homework, they should go look at that. Without land, we're in trouble. The two things that make a city function right now in the state of Nevada, which is very different than almost any other state, is having land, but then also having a strong industrial area. We are unique that our industrial area is in a flood zone. And so our industrial area is not the strongest industrial area that there is. And so for us, we have to be wise and think of our taxpayers. It was somehow innuendoed that we're not. And I want to say very clearly, that is exactly what we're doing, is thinking, at least I can speak for myself, for sure, thinking of our taxpayers to make sure that we do not have to or see some crazy increases to help make sure we can cover things. We need more land, and this will do that, especially in the city of Sparks. And so as I look at this, I see a lot of wisdom in this. I think it's an investment. I think you guys have served well. I think you've communicated well and you've educated well. If people feel that they have not been heard, I challenge you, let's go to coffee. I'll buy it. We'll sit down, we can talk. I think anybody on this board is interested in making sure you understand. But also that education is why we need you guys in there to help represent us in DC, to help represent us in the community, but also to help continue with your education. I think you guys have had, I mean, how many public meetings do you think you've had? Could you even give a number?
75 that I spoke at.
Yeah, so that's, I know,
least
I've been to
75.
3 that I've brought people, and from voters to business to constituents. And I just say at large, I just think it's important that people understand. There's a lot of opinions around any decision being made, and that's fair. That does happen. I know that if I went to another jurisdiction and wanted to speak into how they function, I might have my own opinions as well. But I can tell you, for me, I think we've done our due diligence. I think we have communicated and will continue to communicate. We do have a few more miracles that need to happen to see this thing go through. So none of this is a done deal at this point. However, to not walk forward and strategically use our land correctly, I think we're doing a disservice to our community. And so I wanted to say that at large, and obviously that shows my support. And I don't know that I have a lot of questions because we talk a lot. And I look forward to continued more work together, and hopefully that transpires today. Thank you.
Ms. Vanderwell.
Thank you. I just have one question. Where can the general public find a copy of the land study? The one that you held up?
I think I think this is on the Washoe County website for the lands bill. If not, I will get it on there, and I can get you a copy as well.
Okay, that's perfect. And possibly can we get a copy of that to the city of Sparks and we can put it out on our website for
That's-
access? I
yes.
appreciate that.
I
Thank you.
certainly can.
Ms. Spivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can either of you talk about, I think, one of the most important components of the lands bill, besides the fact that the BLM and the federal government own, what is the percentage now? 80,
It's 85, I want to say, in Washoe County.
85%
Come down a little bit.
of our land is owned by the federal government. And it's an interesting challenge for states that are back east and other parts of the country. Really, the western states are the ones that the federal government owns majority of our land. And so when we're looking at lands bills across our state, our cities have grown to those edges where we are, and there's pieces of Sparks that are completely surrounded by BLM land. So an interesting challenge as we grow, we will go into that federal land. So that's part of the logic of why we would be looking for acquiring land to expand as we grow. But I think one of the most important parts of the lands bill for me is the road, is USA Parkway and the road that would connect. And can you address that a little bit? Because I think it's such an important component in so many ways that is a really help sell that for our businesses, for our residents, from a safety perspective. Can you explain what that piece of this possibility would be with the lands bill?
I'm happy to answer that, ma'am. I would say this. It's important for any number of reasons, not the least of which is alternative transportation route. Not only to Trick, but all along. I mean, if I-80 clogs up, and it does, we have another way, not just for business, but obviously for commuters or residents to get around. Two, what's so important about the lands bill is if that road were to be constructed and simply go from point A to point B with nothing on either side, there'd be value to it. The idea of being able to develop around that road throughout from La Posada all the way to USA Parkway, understanding that a lot of that land will be available for commercial, for manufacturing, ostensibly for things that will be in direct support of Trick, and even further east, I'd argue, with what's going on in Fernley and Lyon County. So the lands bill key is obviously some of the road is on BLM land, but even more importantly, that land is a good chunk of it is now will be on the disposal list. So that land will be able to be developed, and those who work at Trick will be able to, or those who are sending products to Trick can be much closer and not have to go on I-80 in trucks to get their things there. So it's the land around the road as much as the road, I believe, that has the real value.
Well, and I would add to that the number, and Mayor, you have these numbers down, of the percentage of people working at the Tri-Center who live north of I-80, and they're in Sparks and they're in North Valleys. And that access, think about it, and with accidents every day, that I would argue it's a safety component of people being able to commute on that USA Parkway to La Posada and eventually over to North Valleys would be, I mean, and the mayor's done, he does the numbers all the time, the DRI study on carbon emissions differences, but on safety and efficiencies for the workers who are working there, for their families, for the companies, that connector, as well as when we have an emergency situation in this valley. I mean, I don't think any of us really think about it, but we have one north-south and one east-west freeway in this whole bowl that we sit on. If we have major fire or natural disasters that we're trying to get people moved, there aren't a lot of options. So I look at it that as an advantage as well. And just to close my thoughts, I think, I appreciate the work that you all have done. And in my mind, kind of the outreach component has been extensive. And we're moving to the next phase of our congressional delegation and getting it moved through Congress. I would feel much more comfortable if this agreement were on a monthly basis, because I don't want to commit today. It's a lot of money. I mean, especially in tight times that we've faced this year with inflation, we really, $180,000 is a lot of money. And yet, I don't want to commit today to a full year, and whether it takes a year to get through the next step of what you all need to do and the time and money we pay you to do that, or whether we do an up to amount. This is just my up to with monthly, what our progress is, and do we need to continue to retain the services for a full year? Is it 6 months? Is it 3 months? I mean, I know none of us can foretell, especially when we're working with Congress. I get that. But I would feel more comfortable that I would have an option that it'd be an up to amount with the time needed for the services that we need to help you guys close the deal for us. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. So it was stated by a few people that the public doesn't necessarily know what's being said. I did not realize there had been 75 meetings at least about this. I know I sat in on some, as you mentioned, smaller groups, maybe 15 or so. I can remember that one being ranchers and farmers and such that were talking it through and voicing concerns and such. I believe I might have been at the one you were talking about. There had to have been well over 100, maybe 150 folks that were everything from environmentalists to, I remember Patagonia was there, off-road groups, hunting, fishing, you name it. I mean, anyone interested with outdoors seemed to be there at it, not to mention if you own property in Washoe County. So with that being said, I mean, we've had a lot of public meetings. Where can they go to learn more other than having coffee with one of us? And I want to echo what Christopher Dare said, is that, yeah, I mean, if you're concerned and you don't feel you have enough information, let me know. I'll sit down and buy you coffee and we'll talk it through, because we do get regular updates as to what's going on, and we do understand thoroughly this project. But where can the public go? We mentioned the study and that would be made available, but where else can the public go to really get a good understanding of what the project is?
Washoe County is the holder of that information. They conducted the hearings, the stakeholder meetings. They assisted Senator Rosen's office in getting the input from all of those meetings, and that's on a website hosted by the county. And I believe the website for that is www.tmplma.org. And again, that's over at Washoe County.
Okay, so it is there where we can actually access.
You can see the public comment that was registered by the public, verbatim, word by word, comments back to those stakeholders who asked questions. So that conversation is there, hosted by Washoe County, and they did support the resolution as well. One thing I neglected to say in my remarks is that through this process, as the community started learning more and more that the lands bill is going to come to fruition, people jumped on the wagon, like the University of Nevada, Reno. They have land in that bill, in the bill draft, so they can expand their campuses. Washoe County School District has parcels in that bill so they can expand their school facilities. It's agencies like that it's not only Sparks, it's not only Washoe County, it's not only RTC and Tumwa. This bill has become broader and broader and broader for the public good, just not for the city of Sparks or Washoe County.
Councilman Anderson, if I could, I'll say, in fairness, as this process has gone on, there's been a number of iterations of language and maps. So I guess you're kind of torn between making public maps that you're working on but know may change, or just keeping it till the end and saying, okay, we're only gonna put out one set of maps and these are the final maps. I think the decision by any number of folks was we'll put things out as we have it and then understand that there will be some changes, and I don't believe there'll be any significant changes, as an example, from the bill introduced here in a few days to the draft that was put out last April, but it's a different bill. So some of those maps have changed. So I think when the bill's introduced, then there's no more playing with it. Of course, it can be amended through the process, but the bill as introduced will be what we all work off of. But I think it's been fairly consistent, will be fairly consistent with what was released as the draft bill and draft maps.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, as someone that's sat in on a few of those, a few of those meetings, I definitely want to just say thank you for doing all that outreach. And I know Mayor Lawson, just pulling up, right here on the website, it's pretty easy. There's his PowerPoint. There's the whole website for the Truckee Meadows Public Land. At the very bottom, you can sign up, get emails. All that information that's been discussed right here was easily pulled up in 20 seconds here. So there's a lot of links. There's a lot of public-facing stuff. I do want to ask, is there any future, we had a few people in public that were, I think, interested in learning more. Do we have any more public-facing meetings that you guys have scheduled anytime soon?
I think we'll look to see once the bill's introduced and kind of that, because there will be, in fairness, I think there'll be a lot of people who will be interested in it for the first time. Sometimes when you have an idea and you're working through the process, people don't engage until they have a sense that it may be real. And I think introduction of the bill makes it real. It's the first time Truckee Meadows, Washoe County will ever have had a lands bill introduced in Congress. So I think that will generate a lot more interest, and then we'll have something we can point to, not kind of hypothetically, but something that's pretty clear. So we're we'll coordinate and take cues from our congressional delegation, because it'll be in many ways their story to tell at that point, because it'll be their bill. But we certainly hope so. I mean, we've tried to do as much as we can to make that information available. I wouldn't tell you that it's all easy to understand. It's a lot of boundaries, but things like parcels, everybody has access to, can look and kind of see where the stuff is. It's all in there.
Cool, thank you. And for anyone watching or in the room, the website is landsbill.org. So just to put that out there.
Mr. Dare.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to share one more thing, and I definitely, for any citizens to really know this, especially anybody climate control and all the things we do on that. So I serve as the health board chair, and I've been on that for years. One of our problems we also have is air attainment, of just making sure that we stay in attainment with air quality. And we are right there on the edge all the time. Now, the part of that reason, if you look at the mapping in the zone, is because that corridor shuts down. And in the summer, we find ourselves, that's one of our worst spots in town. And it actually affects the whole region because we're in the valley. I only say that to say that each of the things are being looked at and will continue to be looked at. Nobody's trying to shove something through, trying to hide anything or anything. This is a constant conversation. But even with air quality and conservation, we have to be looking at those, and we have. And I've done a lot of work over the years with our air quality. So I just want to say that that's another aspect. And I don't know if you want to speak to that, because I think when it comes to our conservation people who step up, I think it's important to know we are working and talking.
So, yeah, you gave a lot of speeches on this, and to a lot of people, to a lot of groups. And for anyone who would sit still with 3 people or 2 people, we'd give them the whole speech about everything. I'll make one better offer. If you want to come to my office, I have maps of the entire thing. That my whole office is probably 4 foot by 15 foot of maps that show what we want to do, what we're trying to do, and why we have to do it. That's the most important part, is the why. We are out of land. Let's just put that right now. We have all the land in Sparks entitled except for smaller pieces. You can't buy a 50-acre parcel. So that means we have to grow up. When you grow up, things get more expensive. We already have a $50,000 gap between a median income and a median house price. If that goes up higher, we're gonna lose another generation of kids. We lost my kids when they graduated from college because there was no jobs here in 2010. Now we're gonna lose another generation of our Nevada kids because they can't afford to live here. So this is my passion in the whole thing, is to get this to where we can have generations of families like we've had forever and ever and ever, that grandparents and kids and grandkids can all live in the same community. So please, if you want to, please call the mayor's office, set an appointment. I'll be happy to cover this with you. But for my thoughts, you guys have done a great job. You've done everything we've asked and have gone above and beyond. Setting up the coalition to do the land study was very enlightening for everybody. So for me, I know I don't get a vote, but I'm in support of both contracts. So with that, do I have any other comments from the council? All right, well then let's take 8.4. Consideration of possible approval for an expenditure of $90,000 augmenting a professional services agreement, AC 5701, with Barrett Resources for outreach work benefiting the City of Sparks' interest in the Truckee Meadows Public Land Management Act. Looking for a motion.
If I want to amend it, do we have to not pass it and then? I'm looking at the attorney.
All right, Councilwoman, what's your question?
Well, we got a motion.
If I wanted an amendment, would this have to fail and then I'd come back with the second motion?
Well,
Or can I offer an amendment before we vote?
So someone can make at the pleasure of the council, can make a motion and go from there.
We have Mr. Dare who has made a motion or is asked to make a motion.
My motion would be what's existing, so would you prefer to try your amendment?
Which way do we want to go first?
We don't have a second yet. I'll second just so we can
Okay.
discuss it.
Okay, we got a second by Mr. Anderson. Any further discussion?
Yes, I guess I'll come in here. I think as I've already previously stated, I would feel much more comfortable looking at this expenditure to be up to $90,000 with up to 1 year, not set in stone for 90 and set in stone for 1 year, to give us a flexibility that if we're able to get the work done in less time than that, we're not going to be spending as much money. It's the $7,500 per month, I believe it is, for whatever the duration that we need to move through. And obviously, we've got 2 of these, so I don't know if Chris will be finished with outreach and things that happen sooner than what you're doing on the federal level, but it would give us some flexibility and not lock in $180,000. So those are my thoughts.
Mr. Dare, you willing to amend your motion?
Well,
Mr.
can I ask-
Chief?
We haven't read the motion into the record yet, please, if I could have you do that.
I moved to
I did, oh, okay.
Councilman Dare, thank you.
I move to approve an expenditure of $90,000 to augment a professional services agreement, AC 5701, to Barrett Resources to continue to provide outreach efforts to benefit the City of Sparks' interest in the Truckee Meadows Public Land Management Act.
Okay, Ms. Vanderwell, you wanted to
I
speak?
second the motion.
Yes, I'm gonna agree with Councilwoman Bybee. I would like it an up to the 90 and an up to a year in case things actually move faster than they have been moving. I just don't want to be on the hook for a full 180 this year.
You want to amend your motion, Mr. Dare,
I have a question first, if that's okay.
please?
What happens if we get this thing done? In 2 months, everything just turns over and we don't need to do the same outreach? In my understanding, there's probably more outreach once this thing hits, but can you speak to that for a minute? I mean, if we don't need your services, does this just continue and you guys get a bonus, or how does that work?
In every, and in every contract I've written, we've had a 30-day out clause. And I would be overjoyed to come back here and report to you on April 20th that it's done and signed into law.
Yeah, because my understanding is that this is already in place. And so, I mean, to me, if, I necessarily think that's necessary. And I say it for the reason of that we have a 30-day out, and that's something we can take. If the work is done, we aren't going to continue to pay it. But I think we have other contracts like that.
Do we have a 30-day out clause in these contracts would be my question.
No? Chris is saying he doesn't have it in there, so.
I have, that's standard for me. I'm happy to have a 30-day out in my contract if that
I'm fine
helps
with
you.
that as well.
Then I'm happy to make that a port of my amendment
Yeah.
to do that. That actually makes sense to me.
I have other contracts that go a year and the work is done before then, and I say, well, I'm done, I'm not gonna bill you. I just don't operate that way.
Understood you,
But
but
30
we have
30
a,
days is fine,
yeah, I understand.
thank you.
Mr. Duncan, you are deeply thinking, and we want to read your mind. Because I think you have a very fair point. If it's in there, let's do it contractually.
So if you want to rescind your motion and move the motion with this language, with the addition that there be a
30-day written out.
30-day, if it's before the contract term,
Correct.
there's a 30-day out. You can amend your motion to that end.
Rescind but amend.
Just amend it.
Can I just amend it, or I need to rescind this?
And then do you have to give the city manager the opportunity to amend that and sign?
You have to put I would rescind the motion and put the motion of the language that you want on
Okay.
there for consideration for the board.
Okay. All right, we're gonna call a 5-minute recess while we straighten this out.
Thank you.
All right, let's call back to order the Sparks City Council meeting.
But is it that it's
We're on
hot?
8.4. Mr. Dare, do you have the information that you need for your motion?
Yeah, based on discussion, I'm going to make an amendment to our motion. And that motion is, I move to approve an expenditure of $90,000 to augment a professional services agreement, AC 5701, to Barrett Resources to continue to provide outreach efforts to benefit the City of Sparks' interest in the Truckee Meadows Public Land Management Act with the addition of a 30-day contract termination clause should the lands bill be passed before the expiration of the contract term.
Mr. Anderson?
I'm willing to amend my motion to match that.
Okay, so now I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. 8.5, consideration of possible approval for an expenditure of $90,000 augmenting a professional services agreement, AC 6013, with SB Strategic Consulting, Inc. for outreach work benefiting the City of Sparks' interest in the Truckee Meadows Public Land Management Act. Any questions? Well, if not, I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Anderson.
I move to approve an expenditure of $90,000 to augment a professional services agreement, AC 6013, to SB Strategic Consulting Incorporated for outreach work benefiting the City of Sparks' interest in the Truckee Meadows Public Land Management Act, with the addition of a 30-day contract termination clause should the lands bill be passed before the expiration of the contract term.
Okay, I've got a motion and Mr. Abbott?
Second.
Thank you. That's a long motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Now get back to work. All right, 9.1, consideration, discussion, and possible approval or rejection of an offer to settle Lawson versus the City of Sparks et al., CV 23-00458, in the amount of $600,000. John.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lawson and members of the City Council. My name is John Funk. I'm an attorney at the Gunderson Law Firm. I have been retained to represent the City of Sparks with respect to a lawsuit filed by Mark Lawson. There was a settlement offer that has been made by Mr. Lawson through his attorney that has been tendered to the City Council for consideration. The information has been provided to you in your agenda packet. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions from the council? All right, seeing none, I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Dare.
I move to reject the offer to settle Lawson versus City of Sparks et al., CV 23-00458, in the amount of $600,000.
Mr. Anderson.
I will second the motion.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
9.2, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a construction contract, AC 6012, with the Truckee Meadows Construction for the Black Hills Dog Park Construction Project, bid number 23/24-03003, PWP, hashtag WA 2024-041, in the amount of $726,696,000.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Brandon Miles, Parks Development Coordinator for the record. I'm here before you to propose the agenda item for Black Hills Dog Park, which is the final park within the Foothills community in Wingfield Springs. As you can see in the vicinity map on the screens, highlighted in red is the park location on the corner of Vista Boulevard and Black Hills Drive. If you can see the hand here, the cursor, this will be the park entrance, and a concrete pathway will lead you back to this back corner of the property where the small and large dog park will be located.
The two parks will be separated by a fence, and both dog parks will be fenced. In the design portion of this project, we wanted to incorporate some of the native vegetation because it is a very beautiful area back here behind these 4 houses. Also with that, we wanted to maintain a buffer between the houses here and the dog park with trees and shrubs, and wanted to keep it looking natural. The park includes concrete pathways, a fenced small and large dog park, shrubs and trees, shade structures, fitness stations for people, and doggy play equipment. 11 bids were received in the formal bidding process. One was thrown out due to the contractor not self-listing. Staff recommends approval of a construction contract with Truckee Meadows Construction in the amount of $726,696. With that, I can answer questions.
All right, questions from the council. Ms. Bybee.
Thank you, Brandon. So excited for this.
Yes, I
I've
know
got
you are.
residents, this is in my ward, and I've had residents for years that keep asking about the dog park.
Yep.
And so it's taken us a while to get here.
It has.
Super excited for the park to finally become a reality. What are we looking at, what we would hope for construction? And I know this is first step, but when are we hoping for a possible opening of, completion and opening of the park?
So I would say by the time we get through the contract portion and submittal process, it'll probably be spring by the time we start construction, and we have a 120-day calendar day construction contract.
120 days
Yes,
from the start of construction.
from the time we break ground on the site.
This summer.
Okay.
So yeah,
Maybe late summer, early
Yeah.
fall? Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Abbott.
Just to say thank you, and to also thank you, or there's many members on Nextdoor that are very thankful of this dog park going in. It's been a very common question I've seen up there. So definitely, I know they'll be happy. Also, as a member of the Parks and Rec Board, it's been exciting to see this come along, and so excited for it. Have another offer or another opportunity for people to take their dogs to.
Glad to hear it.
Good job.
Mr. Dare?
I definitely just will echo, I have many people, I'm just jealous that it's not just one street over, because that's in the other ward, but I look forward to your update so I can share it with all of our people, because we are one city, we all work together, and all of them, it's for everybody. And so it's very exciting to see. I know many people will be looking forward to that, so thank you, good job.
Agreed, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? We're looking for a motion, Ms. Bybee.
I didn't even get a chance to read it yet. I move to approve the construction contract AC 6012 with Truckee Meadows Construction for the Black Hills Dog Park Construction Project, bid number 23-24-003, PWP WA 2024-041, in the amount of $726,696.
Ms. Vanderwell.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Brandon. 9.3, consideration discussion of possible approval of a construction contract AC 6011 in the amount of $704,242 with FW Carson Company for the 2023 alley rehabilitation, my mouth's not working good today, rehabilitation project, Alley E, bid number 23/24-007, PWP WA-2024-034.
Thank you, Mayor, members of
Thanks,
council.
Amber.
For the record, Amber Sosa, Transportation Manager. As introduced, this is a construction contract for our 2023 alley rehabilitation project, Alley E. The contract is proposed at $704,242 with FW Carson Company. This project was prioritized through the city's pavement management system and included in our 5-year program of projects in the roadway capital improvement plan. It is also supported by the sanitary sewer capital improvement plan. To direct you to the map on your screen, this is the location in red of where this alley is. It's just south of Prater, just north of Victorian Avenue, and sits between 21st and 22nd Street. The project involves removing and replacing a deteriorated asphalt alleyway and putting it back as a concrete alleyway surface. It also includes replacement and upgrades to the sanitary sewer and storm drain infrastructure within the limits of that alley. In November of 2023, we received 11 bids for this project, with FW Carson being the low bidder at $704,242. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions from the council? Not, I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
Perfect. I move to approve a construction contract AC-6011 in the amount of $704,242 with FW Carson Co. for the 2023 Alley Rehabilitation Project Alley E, bid number /24-007, PWP WA-2024-034.
Ms. Vanderwell.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Sorry.
Yes. Oh, you have
My
discussion?
apologies, yeah. Just say thank you. I know this is a alleyway that many of the businesses have been making comments about for a while. And so, using a word I learned last year, this will ameliorate the situation. Oh, ameliorate? Remember? Ameliorate. No, ameliorate. Make something better. I learned that at a proclamation. So definitely, I just tried. But no, definitely thank you. I know there's a lot of businesses I reached out to down there that are excited about that investment. So that's it.
Yeah, that was tough.
Thank you.
All right, got a motion and a second. Motion carries unanimously.
And I can spell it.
Yeah.
I can spell it. I'll tell you later.
Ameliorate.
All right, 9.4, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an expenditure up to $638,860 for contract labor to maintain City of Sparks parks, streets, drains, other facilities, fleet vehicles, and provide administrative support for the City of Sparks Public Works Maintenance Division utilizing state of Nevada RFP contract number 99 SWC-S1406 for possible action. Sorry, Mr. Drinkwater.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Michael Drinkwater, Community Services Director. I have with me
Matt Dearborn, Assistant Public Works Manager.
Mr. Anderson, that is Mark Anderson, our Public Works Maintenance Manager, is in bed with this cold that I'm on the downhill side of, and he regrets he could not join us today, so we're covering for him. We're before you seeking your approval of this expenditure to cover the contract labor we use at the Corporation Yard for the various maintenance functions that are performed each year. That includes parks maintenance, streets maintenance, utilities, drains, and also in the shop, in the garage. The state contract that we hope to join her onto allows us to use multiple vendors. It's not vendor specific, although we do typically use manpower, and we like the manpower service we get. If for some reason they wouldn't be able to supply the people when we need them, it would allow us the latitude to seek a different vendor to provide temporary contract labor. In the staff report, there's a breakdown of where the different funds and where what that gets us. For example, in the parks maintenance function, we get approximately 4 year-round contract employees to help with the trash and the mowing and so on. And in the drains function, we get 3 people. And in street maintenance, we get 3. In the drains, we also get 6. So, and then in the garage, there's a part-time position to help cleaning and so on. I brought Matt with me in case I get too far, if I start saying strange things, he'll correct me, and it's his first time at council, and he if I brought him, you'd be nice to him and maybe nice to me. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And frankly, just since I've left Tumworth, I haven't spent any money, so I had to get down here,
That was a separate budget.
Yeah.
It was easy to approve that one. Any questions from the council?
Just comment.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thanks for being here, Matt. And we're really pretty nice. We try not to be mean, but I love contracts contract labor that we use across the city that gives us the opportunity to get the work done that maybe we don't require in any department full-time with benefits it augments who we have working full-time for the city already and gives the opportunity for other people to have work and for us to get the work done that we need to get done on, limited manpower that's within the city. So I always appreciate anyone, all the departments that come forward with this because I think it's a win-win and a good fiscal decision. So thank you.
Mr. Dare.
I'd agree very much so that coming together and having areas where we don't end up paying the whole thing and we can walk. But I also would say the balance that I think I spoke about once in a meeting, it'd be good to know if and when there are areas that you guys believe a full-time somebody would be more beneficial because there's a line in that sand. And so I'm very interested in hearing that in the future. So with that, thank you for bringing this, and I think this is good. But as we walk forward, I know we're walking through some tumultuous potential economic times, so probably this is also perfect for that timing. But as we figure out what that looks like, I'd be interested to see if there's any full-time positions that are wise as well. Thanks.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, no tough questions. Actually, it's a compliment for you guys. I just want to say thanks for not only just giving us the budget accounts that would be impacted by this, but the breakdown of how many individuals doing what and to what extent on the cost. So I just want to say thank you for making it very clear, very transparent what it is that would be done for these extra labor positions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Matt did that.
Well done.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Anderson.
I move to approve expenditure of up to $638,860 for contract labor to maintain City of Sparks parks, streets, drains, fleet vehicles, and provide administrative support for the City of Sparks Public Works Maintenance Division, utilizing State of Nevada RFP contract number 99 SWC-S1406.
Mr. Dare.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
9.5, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of an interlocal agreement, AC 5998, between the City of Sparks and Washoe County to allow for conducting and holding of the 2024 primary and general elections in an amount not to exceed $40,000. Madam Clerk.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lawson, members of council, Lisa Hunterman, your city clerk for the record. Pursuant to NRS 293C, any city election must be under the control of the governing body, and Sparks City Charter allows the governing body to contract with the county to conduct the election. So I am here today seeking approval of the interlocal agreement between the City of Sparks and Washoe County to conduct both the primary and general elections for 2024. The agreement looks very similar to years past, so I'm just going to touch on some key points. The county will provide all voting equipment and man all polling locations for the election, including the City Hall location, and that is both during all early voting periods and election days. There will be allowed a minimum of 4 City of Sparks staff at any given time that will be allowed to assist or observe all election processes, and that will be ballot sorting, precinct sorting, ballot counting, signature verification, anything that has to do with the election, we will be allowed to have hands-on access to. The clerk's office has been extremely hands-on in years past. I believe last year we had about 5 or 6 people that put in over 80 hours over at the county just participating in the election process, and I don't foresee this year being any different. The cost for the election, the City of Sparks will pay 15 cents per registered voter, plus any additional costs for the city's portion of the election should there be any sort of ballot questions or misprints that were due to our errors. Historically, this has roughly run about $18,000 to $20,000 for an election period. However, with same-day registration, DMV automatic registration, and it being a presidential election year, we're going to go ahead and err on the side of caution and ask for a not-to-exceeds amount of $40,000.
Staff recommends approval of the interlocal agreement with Washoe County to conduct the election, and that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Dare.
You did answer most of my questions and well, all of my questions, but I just want to thank you for the work you did last time and that you were very involved in your team. And I think that's something for all of our constituents to know is that, yes, as all this happens, our staff is involved to make sure that if you are a resident of the city of Sparks, you can come in and we can look you in the eye and say your vote was counted correctly to every way that we know how to correct that and make sure that's accurate. So thank you for your work, and I think you already said that we're planning to do what we did last time again, so thank you for doing that.
Absolutely, and my staff volunteers to come out and help, and it's been an amazing opportunity for us to be able to even participate in that, so I think I speak on behalf of all of us saying that it's actually pretty cool to be able to do that.
Okay, Ms. Spivey.
I'd like to echo the same comments because I know several election cycles ago, one in particular I can think of, that we really were not so involved. I think we offered, and then the county said they've got this. And we really, I think most of us felt very strongly, and I know you do, and I do appreciate you're really pushing hard, making the council aware of that, and really pushing for Sparks being there at the table so that we can reassure our voters that that the whole process is being done as it should be, that we have hands on, eyes on, because we've got to restore, or we've got to make sure that voter confidence is there, and that people, how important it is for them to vote, and that the more confidence we can give voters in an age of just everyone trying to do the opposite, whatever we can do to ensure that, so that the voters know that we are watching from the city of Sparks each election process. And I appreciate the work you and your staff have done, because I think this last election cycle, I really saw a difference, and I'm glad that we're doing the same thing again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion then. Ms. Vanderwell.
I move to approve the interlocal agreement AC-5998 with Washoe County to provide for the conducting and holding of the primary and general elections in the city of Sparks for 2024 in the amount not to exceed $40,000.
Ms. Spivey.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? See none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. All right. Julie's going to read this for me, right? Public hearing 10.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading, public hearing, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of Bill Number 2816, an ordinance providing for the conducting and holding of a primary election in the city of Sparks on the 11th day of June 2024 and a general election in the city of Sparks on the 5th day of November 2024, identifying municipal offices seeking candidates, authorizing Washoe County to conduct the election, and setting the filing fees for declarations of candidacy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Lisa Hunterman again, your city clerk for the record. We are here today to approve the ordinance 2634. NRS 293C requires that the city adopt an ordinance providing for the holding of any municipal election. This ordinance also acknowledges the agreement that we just passed between the city of Sparks and Washoe County, and authorizes Washoe County to conduct the election. It sets the filing fees for declarations of candidacy at $30. Currently, we are open for judicial candidacy filing through January 12th, and all other offices will be open March 4th through the 15th for filing. The next thing that the ordinance does is it identifies the offices that are currently seeking candidacy, and that would be Municipal Court Judge in Department 2, the Office of City Attorney, and City Council members in Wards 1, 3, and 5. And the last thing it does is it identifies the election dates as the 11th day of June 2024 and the 5th day of November 2024. As a reminder, this is a public hearing. Staff does recommend approval of this ordinance, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wishing to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any comments from the council? If not, I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Abbott.
I move to adopt Bill number 2816, an ordinance providing for the conducting and holding of a primary election in the city of Sparks on the 11th day of June 2024 and a general election in the city of Sparks on the 5th day of November 2024. Identifying municipal offices seeking candidates, authorizing Washoe County to conduct the election, and setting the filing fees for declarations of candidacy.
Mr. Adair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, 10.2, public hearing. Are you going to read this one, Lisa?
I am.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is public hearing, consideration, discussion, and possible approval to retain Marquise Arbach. What's that? Chartered. Sorry. To represent the city of Sparks in various labor and employment matters as needed at the rates of $250 per hour for partners, $210 per hour for associates, and $125 per hour for law clerks and paralegals.
Allison.
Thank you, Mayor Lawson and City Council members. For the record, I'm Allison McCormick, your Assistant City Manager. I am seeking your approval today of a contract with Marquise Arbach Chartered, a law firm, for legal services in various labor and employment-related matters. In May of 2022, the city manager executed a contract with Marquise Arbach with rates of $250 per hour for partners, $210 per hour for associates, and $125 per hour for law clerks and paralegals. Since then, the firm has provided invaluable legal services to the city in complex matters with specific and frankly, Byzantine procedures in some cases, including arbitrations, proceedings before the Nevada Equal Rights Commission, and nuanced disciplinary issues. However, staff recently learned that payments to Marquise Arbach had exceeded the city manager's spending authority, which is currently $50,000. In order to continue to receive these valuable and specialized legal services, staff is requesting that the City Council approve the contract under the same terms and hourly rates. A public hearing is required for this matter, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wishing to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. Questions from the council. Ms. Vanderwell.
Thank you, and thank you, Allison, for answering the questions that I had about this previously. So you want to first of all, I want to ask, are there anything under this contract that our city attorney's office can provide for us that they have been providing for us? Has that been reviewed?
That is something that staff is currently working with the city attorney's office to evaluate. I think at this time, there is nothing pending that Marquise Arbach is working on that the city attorney's office has capacity or the specialized practice in those matters to handle, but that is certainly something, some feedback that we've received both from you and some of your colleagues that that is something that we need to get back to doing, is using the city attorney's office to its full capabilities.
Okay, great. And then I have a follow-up. Is there an end date on this contract?
As written, there is not.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Bybee.
So do we have a, I guess the end date, that helps me, but do we have a maximum authority that if you had a year that was really busy, that we really needed their services? Do we have any cap? Do we have anything that you have to come back to council if it exceeds? And would it be under the city manager's authority? Because obviously this didn't come to us.
Correct.
This was something the city manager signed and executed, and he didn't need our approval to do that. So I guess I would just be concerned on, are we going to spend $500,000 on this, or is it 50 or 40? And I know we don't know until that work comes in, but I kind of would feel better if I knew that we were looking at an annual estimated amount, and if it exceeded that, come back to us and we would see exactly what, we'd have an accounting for the work that was done and why we needed more than maybe was budgeted. So it's not budgeted right now, and I have a little concern over that.
So we do budget for professional services in legal services in particular, both in the management services budget and the human resources budget. So there is a budgeted expense, but this contract, we paid more than the $50,000 that the city manager has authority to contract currently. But this is within the budget for the last 2 fiscal years.
Okay, so so it would be 50,000 per year maximum?
Frankly, whatever the council wanted to select as a number, if you wanted to add a not to exceed amount on this contract. As written, there is no cap, but the council could certainly give that direction in its motion. I would suggest, if that is the direction that the council wants to go, I would ask that you cap it at $75,000, given some of the frankly costly issues that we have coming up, including possible arbitrations for several days.
Okay, and I would just feel more comfortable if I knew that it was not a never-ending contract with a never-ending amount. Causes me concern as a fiscal conservative, so I'm like, okay, you know, that, and I know that it's as needed, so that is when we need the services, and if they're not being able, provided within our own city attorney's office, because really, we want that, you know, we've got staff and whatever Wes's department can handle, we need them doing that first and foremost, but in a highly specialized, I respect the authority of us going outside when needed, but I'm a little, with no end and no cap on it, a little concerned there, so I would be comfortable with the 75, but let me see what my colleagues want, and if we want to include that in the motion or not, I'll wait.
Mr. Dare.
My understanding, because it came to us because the cap is just how much we allow the city manager to do.
Yes.
And so right now, that cap is at 50.
Yes.
I know there's an agenda item coming to talk about that. And so that is something to keep in mind. But with that said, obviously, we're in a pretty interesting year. It would be interesting for me, I would like to hear back from that report from our attorney's office to say, what areas do they think that they can take on? Or is this areas that they can't take on? I know just something that would be of interest to me as well, so.
Thank you. And if I may add, Mr. Mayor, regarding the spending limit, so to speak, we have made some process changes in the last week to make sure that whether it's the city manager's contracting authority or whatever limit the council sets on professional services agreements like this one, we've made some process changes to make sure that we get a alarm essentially when we're coming up against that limit so that this doesn't happen again.
Did you have a question?
She answered it for me. Thank you.
Okay. So I think it'd be my suggestion, you'd put a 1-year limit and a maximum limit, and away we go. No big deal to hear it once a year. And that will tell us where we are in that particular area. Mr. Anderson.
I was going to say, we just did basically the similar thing to another contract. I think that would be acceptable, is put a cap that we would agree on, and then likewise a 1-year term on it.
Okay. So
I can work that into a motion. Does she want to?
are you trying to type that up, Julie? Yes. Thank you. Yes, fix the spelling real quick. 1 year? Okay.
It's a new terminology from Donald.
New terminology? Donald is gonna use that in a sentence later?
I will ameliorate the sentence then.
New year, new you.
Okay,
My resolution.
there's a motion on there. So I have someone who wants to, Ms. Spivey.
Okay. Okay, I move to approve retaining Marquis Auerbach chartered to represent City Sparks in various labor and employment matters as needed at the rates of $250 per hour for partners, $210 per hour for associates, and $125 per hour for law clerks and paralegals for a term of 1 year in an amount not to exceed $75,000.
Ms. Vanderwell.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did we do a public hearing on that?
Yes,
Okay, good.
well done.
Thank you. You didn't push the gavel to me, so I did. 10.3, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading of Bill number 2817, an ordinance amending Title II of the Sparks Municipal Code, Section 2.05.020, duties of the city attorney, adopting Section 2.05.030, duties and powers of the city attorney, adopting Section 2.05.040, temporary inability and successor to city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Wes Duncan, Sparks City Attorney, here for item 10.3, which is a discussion, possible adoption of Bill number 2817. That's an ordinance that both adopts sections and also amends sections to the city attorney ordinance. You know, if you can believe it, the city attorney ordinance, in terms of being looked at in really any substantive fashion, hasn't been looked at in 42 years. And so, you know, with the pace of litigation, the modernization of litigation, the amount of litigation that we're seeing, and in order to modernize both our office and to get us really into the 21st century, I really think that these ordinance changes are necessary. So I'll walk through some of those changes. Of course, in the next agenda item that we'll be hearing, myself and Acting City Manager Crawforth will be kind of walking through some of the ordinances. I think really helps get both of our offices both working together and also getting us up to speed where other jurisdictions are and being able to react to some of the public policy challenges and the different things that the city has. So I wanted to make clear in section 2.05020, the qualifications of the city attorney. Just clarifying, of course, have to be an elector of the incorporated city limits of Sparks, that the city attorney is not to hold any other type of public office while you are he or she is sitting as the city attorney, but also lays out that people who serve in the reserves or the guard are able to do that. The city charter actually empowers all of you to approve employment for the city attorney. And so this is an effort to do that by ordinance to say, can't hold any other public office, but you can be a member of the reserve or guard. So wanted to be able to make that clear in our ordinance. And then you have to, of course, be a Nevada licensed attorney. You have to be in an active status. You have to be qualified and admitted to practice in our state courts. The original ordinance laid out a bunch of different duties and different things. And so it really, again, in an effort for us to modernize the office and to ensure that the city attorney, as the attorney that represents all city departments and the chief prosecutor, is able to manage the litigation in a way that I think is more effective. We amended and added this section 2.05030, which lays out pretty specifically the duties and powers of the city attorney. So first, it just lays out that the city attorney shall represent the city in all its legal matters, that we can initiate and continue litigation that goes in front of the city, and that we are to abide by the practices of attorneys who represent municipal municipal entities. We've also had, of course, cases where we've seen in the last year where there's been conflicts of interest and those type of things that have arisen, and those arise under our Nevada revised statutes. And so this makes clear that in cases where it's impractical, could constitute a conflict of interest, or where it's in the best interest of the city attorney can employ outside counsel up to $100,000. I will note that that is consistent with budgetary appropriations by the city council. The reason why we have that is really to get you all involved more deeply into the process. As we saw even from our previous agenda item, this is going to get you involved with saying, hey, we want to say exactly what the appropriation is for outside counsel. So you all could appropriate only $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, but that just makes clear that the city attorney is able to do that. I'll tell you, there are cases where, and you all are familiar with the cases that we've faced over the last 6 months, where sometimes you have to get an outside counsel immediately, right? And so this would allow the city attorney to be able to do that, to make clear that he or she can do that, and that also there are cases where we're involved in United States Supreme Court litigation with some of our civil rights cases. And so in those instances where we need some outside expertise, it would absolutely help, and it would modernize our office to be able to either hire a counsel for limited matters or be able to consult with on matters where maybe we don't have the expertise or haven't done that. We have 2 cases right now that are one is pending in the United States Supreme Court, and another one's about to be in the United States Supreme Court. Section B of that just lays out that the city attorney represents all the entities. We represent the city or any officer or employee for acts arising out of their official capacities. There was really nothing in statute that laid out that the city attorney is the chief prosecutor. So, of course, our office is charged with prosecuting all misdemeanor crimes that arise out of our jurisdiction. So this clears that up. We have D that allows for the city attorney where there are times maybe there's an open meeting law violation. You know, we have other committees and different things that meet, or whether an agenda item may violate another statute, ordinance, or law, or where an agenda item doesn't meet legal sufficiency, the ability of the city attorney's office to say timeout on that as well. Wanted to make clear that to be able to involve the mayor and the city council as a body, that at any time you all can request a legal update. That allows our offices to be working together. So wanted to make that clear in our ordinances. And then, you know, and again, when I kind of looked at our ordinances and our charter and just the way the practice had been for the last 4 decades, there are times where it just really wasn't clear, hey, do city attorney's office for a cross-claim or a counterclaim, do they need to go to the city council for doing that, or is the office empowered to do that? We just want to make clear that, yeah, for things where there's active litigation that's going on and we want to sue another party or make a cross-claim with another party in active litigation, that the city attorney, as the chief legal advisor, is empowered to be able to do that. So that makes that clear here. And then in terms of appeals, you know, there are times where there'll be agenda items before you where there's a question of whether an appeal should go up. I'll just be candid. I think that's the prerogative of the city attorney's office to be able to figure out those times when appeal is necessary. So that makes clear in our ordinance that we're allowed to do those things. And finally, that the city attorney will continue to perform all the duties that are in the city charter, and also anything that this body, if you felt like you wanted our office to do something by ordinance, or the state legislature empowers the city attorney's office to do something by state statute, of course we'll abide by that. Finally, you know, there was nothing in the city attorney ordinance that dealt with, temporary inability to serve, for example. And so say I was sick or got deployed for 60 days or something like that. There really was no mechanism in our ordinances to say who's running the ship at that point. So this last section says if there's a chief assistant city attorney, that person will take over as the city attorney if the chief assistant position is vacant. And the city attorney, before they are temporarily unable to serve, would then appoint somebody else from within the office to serve that. So I wanted to make sure that there's essentially succession planning. And then finally, it talks a little bit about what happens if the city attorney dies, resigns, becomes not able to practice law in the state of Nevada, or God forbid, or something like that. What's the mechanism for doing that if it's vacated? And of course, consistent with our city charter, the mayor would then make an appointment, like they did in my case, and then that person would have to be approved by all of you. So I do think that this really helps clarify the relationship and the charge of the city attorney's office to do their powers and duties within the city. Clears up any ambiguity. And for us, we want to be transparent about what the office is doing and also serving the best legal interests of the city and being able to clearly detail what those what the authority is within the city. So with that, I'll just wait for any questions if you have any.
Okay, you got anything, Chief?
On this one.
Questions, Ms. Vanderwell?
Public hearing.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for updating everything. I do have a question. I served on the Charter Committee, and a representative from the City Attorney's Office sat on that Charter Committee also. Does this address that as far as legal, who sits to advise the Charter Committee?
Well, for the record, Wes Duncan, so we would sit as, just similarly as we sit here, we would have an attorney that would be present in those meetings. Under the leadership of the last city manager, it was that the city attorney's office was, I think, initiating or was kind of spearheading those efforts of the charter committee. That went back into the city manager's office, and so I think that's where it sits in terms of who's sort of quarterbacking.
Okay.
The charter changes and those things. But in terms of your question, we sit as the attorney when that body meets.
Okay, so if it's in the city manager's office currently, do we have to request to have it put back into the city attorney's office?
I think that's really just our office is always ready to serve and
That's a
help.
charter change, isn't it?
And help.
No, it's always been.
Wouldn't it be a charter change?
No, I think it's really just who is kind of setting up the meetings and going. When I first came on board the city as the chief assistant, we were kind of spearheading the efforts of reaching out to and I think the clerk, Julie's nodding over there, spearheading those efforts to meet and to do those things. And then I'd say maybe a year and a half ago, it went back into the city manager's office to initiate those things. So that's really it's really like any other, committee meeting. It doesn't take a charter change for us to spearhead that. It's really working with the city manager's office of who's running those meetings.
Mr. Dare.
Yeah, thank you. And I do want to say, your team and you guys have done well, representing well, and I actually really appreciate walking through and even the different renditions we've gone through this. One of the things that I would like to highlight that I appreciate is the conversation of obviously working with us, but also working with the city manager's office. I know right now seems like this is a season that this is happening all the time, but within a few months, we'll have a new city manager here, and I don't want it to be just whether they choose to or not. I'd like the idea that there are things in place that this is what you do. This is the involvement. So you're not back here in your office going, should I come into the city manager's office? Should I not? I want that gone, and I want to make sure that relationship is a must, and that's just a guarantee. So whatever in this, I appreciate those things, and I look forward to even more. Just know that my intent and agreeing with this is that we're pushing that relationship forward. So just want to put that on record officially.
I appreciate that. And one thing I will say, I mean, and you'll see it in the next agenda item, but there is I think as we are in a transition phase and, looking for a new city manager and doing all those things, my office, acting city manager Crawforth, we're really trying to set the next person up for success, right? In many ways, and if you look at our ordinances, a lot of things haven't really got into the 21st century. And so when I looked at our ordinance, that nothing's been touched for 42 years, for example, that to me, we have to be a little bit more nimble as a municipal government, and certainly as a city attorney's office, to have clarity on who can do what and who's working with each other and doing all those things, I think is very important. And so I think this ordinance does that, and then the next ordinance that'll come before you will also do that as well, to bring that clarity. I do think the city attorney's office, having a clear charge, working with you all to tell us what the charge is, right, via this ordinance is an important thing.
I don't know if I can add, maybe Chris Crawforth for the record to Councilwoman Vanderwell. Essentially where we're set up right now for most of our committees is the manager's office is like writing up what those agendas look like, putting together the documentation, and then working with Wes's crew on kind of a balance. But that's something we can definitely look at where it's more ingrained.
Ms. Spivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to give you thank you so much for the work that you're doing. This is a prime example. 42 years. Donald's not even close to that old. When you put it in perspective, it's actually, it's a little bit less than how long I've been married. It's a long time. And really, how many things have changed, and going in and looking at things that have not, and we're not keeping up with what we need to be doing. So your cleanup of this ordinance and clarifying everything you are here, as well as the municipal code, as well as everything from, some of our criminal, taking things, whether it's sex trafficking, whether it's citations for cars that are, parked in our industrial area, and having like some legal teeth on it because we haven't looked at any of those municipal code and ordinances for far too long. So it's a lot of work, and I want to just recognize you and your team for the amount of work that you're doing. And really, it's time for us to really dig deep and look at what's been done, because sometimes even things that we're doing on an ongoing basis, we could look at 2 years from now or 3 years from now and like, oh, wow, we need to, Title 20. How many times, Mr. Martini, when I came on board 9 years ago, and we started with Title 20, and how many times have we revisited that because it didn't keep up with today, because a year from now or 2 years from now, things are changing so quickly. And I think the nimbleness of what we do, it helps us also. But I just want to recognize you and your team for that amount of hard work, and totally support everything you're doing, and really us all moving forward and getting things where they should be and updated. And then that's easier to stay on top of it once we have. You've got a huge job that you've taken, but I think it'll make it easier going forward too.
I appreciate that, and thank you for that. And we intend, obviously, as things shift or case law changes, or we feel like there's gaps in either our office or the city manager's office, and be able to react to different things, we'll continue to bring things before you. And so, with that, I'll answer any questions if you have any. Appreciate it.
Okay, any more questions from the council? You got anything to add, Chief?
Public hearing.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. I'm looking for a motion. Mr. Dare.
I move to adopt Bill number 2817, an ordinance amending Title II of the Sparks Municipal Code, Section 2.05.020, duties of the city attorney, adopting Section 2.05.030, duties and powers of the city attorney, and adopting Section 2.05040, temporary inability and successor to city attorney, which are to become effective upon passage by the Sparks City Council.
Ms. Vanderwell.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. 10.4, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading of Bill number 2818, an ordinance amending Title II of the Sparks Municipal Code, Section 2.25.150, by increasing the city manager's authority to enter into contracts from $50,000 to $100,000, amending section 2.27.010 by clarifying which contracts may be signed by city staff, amending section 2.27.030 by increasing the city manager's settlement authority from $25,000 to $100,000, and allowing the city manager and city attorney to accept offers of judgment in litigation matters and providing other matters properly related thereto.
Okay. You're up.
Thanks,
Chief,
sir.
Are you up?
Yep, I'm
You
up.
look like you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lawson, members of City Council. For the record, Chris Crawford, your acting city manager and police chief. As City Attorney Wes Duncan has alluded to, obviously, the two offices have worked closely in the last few months, trying to update some things and bring things into today's time and era. I will hit most of this pretty quickly. Essentially, what this is raising the authority of the city manager up to $100,000, both in contract authority and settlement authority. Local purchase, let me back up a little history on that. Local purchasing thresholds that required a formal bid were originally at $50,000. In 2019, the state legislature increased that to $100,000. That's where we get the $100,000 number. The last time that this was addressed by council was in 2013. As far as the settlement authority, obviously their lawsuits are abound within our country nowadays. We're not immune to that. Those dollar amounts pop up a lot higher. That has not been addressed in our charter or through our ordinances since 2000. One of the questions that I'm sure that you all have is obviously you have a new city manager coming in, and do you want to raise levels and the oversight that you will have of that? No, not only will you have that, but you obviously have oversight over the entire budget. So there's only so much money that can be spent one year. You can also manage any litigation funds that would be appropriated both to the city attorney's office and the city manager. So you're overseeing that. So, and looking at our comparators, meaning our city to the west and the county, their county manager and city manager have authority that's approximately double. And one of those is even higher than that of these thresholds. So it really is bringing us into the 21st century, allowing that day-to-day operation to handle a little bit quicker, as well as some of the concerns that City Attorney Duncan has when it comes to the litigation action, so we can get going, because there are some timelines that are required, which we generally would not meet with how often we meet here. So I will turn it over to Mr. Duncan for anything I missed.
For the record, Wes Duncan, I think you hit everything, Chief. It just in 2019, the legislature raised that threshold for purchasing from 50,000 to 100,000. So that's where we're trying to get consistent with what it is in the state law. And then to hit on a little bit of what he chatted about. So there are times when there are things called offers of judgment, where the party meaning us only has 14 days to respond. So say a party says, we want to settle a case for 50,000, and we're not able to get that in front of this body. And then we go to trial and they get $55,000 from the jury, then we're on the hook for both that judgment and punitives potentially, or not punitives in this case, but and the attorney fees, right? So there are times in litigation, both in federal and state court, where you have to have a quick turnaround. So that empowers, again, both of us working in concert with each other. So not one party has the ability we have to both agree. And then, as you can see from the ordinance that you just passed, you can have an update on litigation at any time. And so if in a situation where if we had an offer of judgment, we could have an update on that litigation, but it would empower both of us working together to be able to do that. The settlement agreement, I will say this, in the 42 years going back, that there was any changes to the city attorney's ordinance. The only change that was made is that it took away settlement authority from our office. Okay, so we didn't ask for, at least the last version of this, we didn't ask for the city attorney, he or she, to be able to do that. But it does empower us to be able to dispose, hopefully, cases where they're at the beginning of their stages, us again working together, having to both agree to do that. The other part that I think is important on this is, we see lots of different MOUs and other type of agreements that come that don't involve a public expenditure, right? So it might be a task force with the police, or it might be an agreement between entities that no one's expending any money. And there was a question of, well, who can sign for that? Does it have to go before the city council or whatever it is? This empowers the city manager to either put the power in the city manager's office to be able to say they can sign for those agreements where there's no public expenditure, or they can designate it to a department head, for example. So the chief of police or the fire chief or whatever can sign MOUs and agreements on behalf of their agency when they have the knowledge in those things where there's no public expenditure. So again, both of these ordinances, this ordinance in particular, trying to set up the next city manager for success, make things clear, bring this stuff, transparency into it. It also has budget appropriations, so that involves putting you all in the driver's seat in terms of the budgetary concerns as well. So with that, you know, if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Questions? Before I go to public hearing?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So I like the yes to the us personally. I think that's actually sets the tone for what we were talking about. My question has to do with the budget. So is this something that we just wait till budgeting time and we make it a budgeting item or is this something that we need to put in here now of saying dependent upon budget? I don't see that. I don't know if I know we're saying the budget and I know we're in control of the budget, but technically speaking, is it in this that it's going to be, because it can't be 100,000 10 times and now actually, you know, we spent $1 million and we're like, what the heck happened? So having the ability to say, we've budgeted, we know we're going to have some things happen.
It is not written into this. What we have is Assistant City Manager McCormick talked to before. We have litigation funds within the City Manager's office and Human Resources. So that's already been allocated for this year. So when we run out, we would have to come back to you and say, here's where it's gone. We need more for X, Y, Z at this point. So my recommendation before, as we're getting into this next fiscal budget, that's where, once again, I would highlight that you take a look at those litigation areas and how much you want in those.
This just attaches to that then. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add, sorry, Councilman Anderson, I would just add too, that gets you all involved in the budgetary process. It gets us thinking more strategically at the front end. And then if you have to go back for more, it requires people to come before you and ask for more money where you can put a not to exceed or do all those type of things. So it helps bring that process to bear. I like it candidly because it helps us plan for litigation and saying, here's how much we think we should be putting in there for outside counsel or for settlement of cases or those type of things. So,
Mr. Anderson.
Want to say thank you to both of you and your offices for the work that's been done on both this one and the previous item. I know a lot of thought, a lot of work has gone into it, and something that you said, Mr. Duncan, about working in concert. That's one thing that I truly believe we failed as a city at times in the past, is not having those two offices, the city manager and the city attorney's office, working closely together. And I just want to say I appreciate, as you said, working in concert, because that's really how we're going to take the city to the level we need to be for the year. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, anyone else? All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais, and I'm looking for a motion. Ms. Vanderwell.
Move to adopt Bill number 2818, an ordinance amending Title II of the Sparks Municipal Code, Section 2.25.150, by increasing the city manager's authority to enter into contracts from $50,000 to $100,000, amending Section 2.27.010 by clarifying which contracts may be signed by city staff, amending Section 2.27.030 by increasing the city manager's settlement authority from $25,000 to $100,000, and allowing the city manager and city attorney to accept offers of judgment in litigation matters and providing other matters properly related thereto, which are to become effective upon passage by the City of Sparks City Council.
Mr. Anderson.
I'll second the motion.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys. Madam Clerk, 11.1, public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is public hearing, consideration, discussion, and possible action on an appeal of a decision by the Sparks Planning Commission to deny a request for a major deviation to increase the maximum rear and side yard fence height from 6 feet to 7 feet and 4 inches on a 6,127 square foot site located at 1186 Glendora Lane, Sparks, Nevada, APN 516-13202 in the PD Plan Development Kylie Ranch South Zoning District.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Danny Ray, Senior Planner with the Planning Division, here to present this item to you today. So we are here to consider an appeal of a decision by the Planning Commission to deny a request for a major deviation for the height of a fence. Okay, thanks. For this site, which is outlined here in red, right here, and located at 1186 Glendora Lane in the Kylie Ranch South Plan Development. Uses surrounding the site are all single-family residential, and the home backs up to Los Altos Parkway between Sparks Boulevard and Vista Boulevard. So how did we get here today? The city's Code Enforcement Division received a citizen complaint regarding an unpermitted fence that the appellant constructed on the existing fence line. This is how the city typically addresses code violations, through the initiation of a complaint by a resident. Code enforcement visited the site, confirmed the code violation, and sent notice to the appellant. The notice of violation was appealed, and the appellants attended an administrative hearing. The hearing officer has allowed the applicant to apply for the major deviation. The appellants applied to allow for the extension of the fence height beyond that which is allowed by the Kylie Ranch South Handbook. So we're here today because, like I said, they denied that, Planning Commission denied that request at their meeting on September 21st of 2023, and that decision has been appealed to you today. So under de novo review, the City Council acts as if it were considering the question for the first time and is not required to uphold the decision of the Planning Commission. So the appellant constructed a rear yard and side yard fence that does not comply with the development standards for fences along the perimeter of Los Altos Parkway per the Kylie Ranch South Handbook, and does not demonstrate uniformity with existing perimeter fencing. So what is a major deviation? Major deviation allows up to 50% deviation from a measurable standard, such as height, setbacks, or area. The appellant is requesting a 1 foot, 4 inch, or 22% deviation for both the rear and side yard fencing. Required fence height is 6 feet per the Kylie Ranch South Plan Development Handbook. The standard is shown in both text and an illustrated exhibit in the handbook, and specifically addresses the fencing along collector roadways and Los Altos Parkway. This is that exhibit provided in the handbook, where it shows 8 feet by 6 feet by 16, and also mentions 6 feet down here. Additionally, the standard provides a consistent design aesthetic, identifying the planned development as a cohesive neighborhood, and provides for the health, safety, and privacy of all residents equally in the neighborhood in the portion of the subdivision that backs up to Los Altos Parkway. So as you can see from this photo that was provided by the applicant and taken from the perspective of Los Altos Parkway, the fence addition is extended beyond the height of the allowed fence. This is just the rear facing shown here. This is the only property with this kind of fencing on this side of Los Altos Parkway that's not in conformance with the required standards from the handbook. So these 3 photos show the fence materials and the height visible from the north side of the property facing Los Altos. This is me. For scale, I'm 5 feet, 5 inches with shoes, so you can see how tall that fence is. The photos in the center and the right show the visual impact of the proposed fencing on the aesthetics and character. It's an anomaly in the neighborhood that doesn't meet the KRS design standards and materials standards or the uniformity for the remaining perimeter fencing. This photo, again, provided by the applicant, is from the perspective of inside the rear yard, facing Los Altos Parkway. Note that a decking of 18 inches in height has been installed that has reduced the level of available height and perceived privacy of the original fence. So I'm going to show you a video. Remember to turn the sound off on this. That shows the perimeter fencing on Los Altos Parkway between Promedio Parkway and Vista Boulevard. Note the consistency of the fencing. This is on the south side of, south side of Los Altos. So the lone exception will be coming up is the applicant's fencing. You will also see that some panels have been replaced and repaired throughout the perimeter fencing, that the color may not be an exact color match to the more of a darker brown shade. Some of these panels are a lighter shade. But the overall height and design is consistent. And here we go. So you see the difference there. Okay. Then as we continue on towards Vista Boulevard is where you'll see some of the panels that are, the overall standard is correct, it's just that there's some color differentiation in their new fencing. Here's an example. And there's an example in there. So those folks have replaced their fencing and still maintaining the height and design that's required. Okay. Nope, there we go. So this slide shows the improvement plans for the associated with this development. I combined the two. Showing outlined in red is the applicant's parcel that is of a very consistent size within a couple hundred square feet. I'm sorry, yeah, a few hundred square feet, maybe a little over 1,000 square foot on this parcel and this one. But all of these parcels are all very similar in size relative to one another. So these are the findings the Planning Commission could not make in their decision. And these are the findings you would need to grant to be able to approve this item today. So for finding MD1, the appellant's request is primarily in conformance with the stated purpose of Title 20 of the Sparks Municipal Code, in that the proposed fencing, for example, has no impact on air and water resources or transportation and public facilities. Allowing the requested deviation for fence height would be an anomaly and an interruption to the existing consistency and uniformity of fence design along that street frontage. As constructed, the fence is not in compliance with the Kylie Ranch South Handbook and provides specific development standards, or which provides specific development standards, both in text and in illustration, for perimeter fencing along Los Altos Parkway. For finding MD2, while the request will likely have no impact on public health or safety, approval of this request may have an injurious impact on neighboring properties, where a deviation from the development standard for residential fence design on Los Altos Parkway for a property that does not differ from adjacent properties in any measurable or significant development standard is not a reasonable request based on the aesthetic impact to the neighborhood and the adjacent properties. For finding MD3,
Denial of this request would maintain the required and uniformly applied 6 feet allowed height and the design standard as permitted in the handbook. For finding MD4, the deviation process is available to the whole of the public within the KRS plan development and within the city of Sparks, and generally would not represent a special privilege to a single property owner. However, given that there are no measurable development standards that would prevent the appellants from enjoying their property to the same extent as the other property owners, approval of this request would be a special privilege to the detriment of the surrounding neighborhood aesthetics. Finding MD5 requires the public hearing be noticed appropriately. Public notice for this appeal was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal and mailed to 76 property owners within 500 feet of the subject property on December 22nd of 2023. Planning Commission and City Council meetings function as public hearing for this item. Public comment has not been received by the Planning Division since the publishing of this item. However, the city's clerk office may have received some public comment that I haven't seen. Now, the Planning Commission is required to consider any impacts to surrounding uses in its decision. After deliberation at its meeting on September 21st, Planning Commission voted to deny the requested major deviation based on the inability to make findings MD1, MD2, MD3, and MD4, citing that the applicant did not obtain a permit and the aesthetic value of the fence creates a lack of uniformity and inconsistency and does not match the rest of the neighborhood. After a thorough review and analysis of the application, staff is unable to make findings MD2, MD3, and MD4, and is therefore recommending the City Council deny this application for major deviation. This is a public hearing. I'm here to answer any questions, and this concludes my presentation.
Okay, let's open it up for public comment. Anyone in the public wishing to speak on this item, come on down, sir. Come on. Come on down and identify yourself for the record. I understand, but we need to do it for the record, so we have it.
My name is John Zams.
Will you help him with the microphone there? Oh,
I just had a question for her.
we can't talk to her. You can talk to me or the council.
So she stated that the 77 notices went out to all of our neighbors within 500 feet. I was just curious if anyone was opposed to our fence.
She said there was no comments, so.
Okay, that's what I didn't hear.
Did the clerk's office receive any comments?
We did not receive anything additional except for from the applicant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Vanderwell? Oh, we're still out for the public. Any other comments from the public? Still working with with Danny Ray. Sorry. All right, we'll close it back up. That it for you? Okay, then I'll bring down the appellant to come on down and present their side.
Okay.
Thank you.
Those are mine. Okay. That's your water?
Are those ours?
Right. These are mine.
Pictures there.
Yeah. I need to get my
You need the overhead?
I think they'll show up there, won't they?
Is it on the computer? Okay.
Hi, I'm Michelle Zenz.
I'm John Zenz.
And we're here to address, I can't see, these are only for reading, so you're all blurred. Just wanted to bring other notation in front of all of you to see what's going on in Sparks and how some things have been being handled. Are these in the right, okay. I've never done this before. Do I just double click? Yes. Okay. Okay, so that's not the PDF. Let's see, so close that out. Where's, I saw the two, so.
And then there's a letter number.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's from the other, we have a neighbor. These are all put together. Let's see.
This one with the red, that's a PDF. The rest of
Okay.
them are photos.
Got it. When we first got the complaint, we really didn't know what the complaint was. So since we had the other hearing, I contacted the building office and asked for them. So they said that the original complaint that they received said, added new fence around a backyard that is taller than code allows, blocking neighbors' view and neighbors' aesthetics. I'm trying to understand what the view was, because the reason we built it, our house is 18 inches above the ground, and they put the fence on the ground below. So in our kitchen, our master bedroom, and in our family room, we were totally visible. We could see people in their vehicles. We, at traffic time, when the traffic stopped between, because it goes from 2 lanes to 1, and we're like 3 blocks of this 1 lane. Those 2 lanes all verge. There's a traffic jam, and you can sit there, and you could have a lemonade stand in our backyard, and because you could see over the fence, and they could see us. Trucks, anything bigger, yeah, they really had visibility. I never had my blinds open for the 20-some years we were there. You know, prior, we built this fence 7 years ago. So we're trying to figure out why all of a sudden somebody is complaining about a view because they can't see into my kitchen anymore. You know, and I have other pictures that show from the street the visibility of our neighbors, because of course we have the fence now, and I didn't take before pictures. We actually built this fence in on our own property. It's not attached or even touching the development fence. We, you know, post concrete, brought it in as a wall so that we would have some barrier to not see. We did it when I retired back in 2017. All of a sudden, I was home. Prior to that, I worked 10 hours a day. So, you know, it was kind of like, just didn't have time to deal with it. But it was something we wanted to stay in the house. We were tired, and we needed some privacy. We were hoping for noise also. That road, when we first moved in there, was very quiet. And then they opened up and crossed over Sparks and then built the Costco and all the other stuff. And it's been so noisy that at night you couldn't sleep. It felt like rattling and shaking anytime in a car, motor, and that traffic, no one goes 30 miles an hour. On either ends, it's 35, and no one's even going 35 on the other adjacent roads that then come down to our little stretch. They're going, somebody just now put in the
May I
last week.
interject? Excuse me. I went out on Sunday to, the city has just recently, within the last week to 2 weeks, posted a speed sign there
Yes, in the
flashing
middle.
at you. I went out there for just a few minutes. Every car, like 95% of them were breaking the speed limit. In the minute or so that I was there, the sign lights up like a cop car, red and blue lights flashing at them, because they're doing more than 10 miles over the posted speed limit. And it's night and day,
And
that
they don't
traffic.
stop. And especially if they have a green light coming from before Sparks, if they're coming from like Pyramid and they're on there and no one's going 35, and that's what that's supposed to be, they come through there speeding, and yeah, it's a mess. So anyway, we built we called it our wall because for privacy. So, but I guess I wanted to address that I couldn't understand blocking this neighbor's view, which our wall faces Los Altos.
Can I interrupt again? If you look at the location, and you may have seen it, Los Altos is behind our house. Do you have a picture there?
Well, I'm gonna get to that, but yeah, I'm
The
just,
Los Altos is behind our house. In front of our house is, not Colina, Glendora. It's our street that we live on. All of our neighbors have actually signed letters approving of our fence. And the person said it was aesthetics, and if you look at the pictures, it's not that outrageous, they're aesthetically pleasing. And it's 1.4 inches over the height.
what I wanted to say.
No, but the
I
view.
have all that. I'm gonna show pictures.
We
Just-
do this at home too.
No.
And this has been a great deal of stress on our,
But hang on. I
but
wanted to.
everybody approved of it, all our neighbors, nobody.
Yeah, all the people that could be there. The only people that blocks their view are the people who are driving on the road, and I'm trying to figure out what are they blocking? This was in their handbook, and this shows where the fence was, and it shows, or this is how it should be. And I don't understand if our house was level and they started the fence level or built a berm, which they did across the street, and if you noticed her little video, the whole block before had a berm on their fence. So when you were looking at their fence lines, their houses, not so much visible, was going into their doors and their windows of their home. And I looked at this and I go, why is this? You know, they put the fence down 18 inches, or they built our house 18 inches higher, so we're looking over the fence. And so I thought, well, okay, that's in their book, the Kylie Ranch book. So these, I'm not gonna read all these letters. These are the 5 letters that we got. Our neighbors that are fine. Now, do I just close this to get out of the PDF?
Yes.
Okay. Then, okay, this is, you saw this also in hers, but this is where we would have to bring the fence down. And we didn't have a deck. When we were in our backyard, we were private because it went down 18 inches. We were down low, we had lawn. We went xeriscape, figuring we were being responsible, getting rid of grass, lawn, water. We were retiring, let's make this maintenance free. And so let's build this wall for visibility. And then we later on decided to build a deck up to, because our fence goes down below where the deck is. It's clear to the ground. Okay, see, these aren't in order, okay. I had a neighbor this also lived there 24 years. She just came to my house Thursday and knocked on the door, and she goes, we've been trying to come by and bring you cookies. We got the notice that was sent out. She's 2 houses down. She goes, I've been calling the city council for years, at least 2 or 3 times, to tell them, when are you gonna build a block wall? And there's 4 of our houses that all come up. The other houses, they kind of span around, and the houses then are closer to the cul-de-sac. They're not as close to the road. And she says it rattles. Her dogs are constantly barking because of the noise. And she says, I want to come to the meeting. And I said, come. So she actually took a picture from the inside of her house, because she doesn't have a fence up. It's 1180. She's at 1186. And she was trying, she said she didn't have time. She's a cake baker, and today that's why she couldn't make it. She had 2 deliveries. She was trying to rearrange them, so she does wedding cakes and big cakes. So this picture, she says, there's a car, so she could see that. She goes, but if there was a truck or something, you would see everything. And I said, okay, well, send what you have. And then she also sent me a letter that I will read because she couldn't make it to this. I see none of these are in the order that I put them. What I wanted to, friends and neighbors, we went around and we took pictures in Sparks, because there's many fences.
You see several just driving over here that are not in compliance. We took pictures, and when we presented this, we asked Danny to please send them to the council, or what members were we on in that? Planning and zoning?
No, the zoning commissioner, building commissioner meeting. This is another fence wall that they needed to see these. And then when we said that there's all these fences around Sparks that people have done, and I don't blame them because of the noise or privacy, they said, well, that actually, and this is my favorite, they actually put picket fence up on top of the building, the roof. But anyway, they said that every development may have different CC&Rs. And so I'm very interested in the CC&Rs in these neighborhoods where these are allowed, and that they are, permitted. I don't think they're permitted. I think just nobody's complained. And I think a lot of people have better things to do than complain about their neighbors. If it's, some of them aren't quite as intrusive, but some of them are built and attached to the actual fence. But what I wanted to say, when she did her little, this is a good one too. They use metal roofing as part of their. But, oh dear, what did I do? Okay.
Oh, here, I'll let you. Pass.
Okay, I already did those up there, so let's see. Oh, thanks. So what I wanted to show, but since these weren't in order, when she did her video of ours, and she did that same thing at the meeting, at the hearing, I said if she would have turned her camera around directly, the two homes right behind us on the same road facing Los Altos, they've added a foot on their fence also. It's different. And then one block down, someone else did. And so that's what I got.
And they also have a berm on it.
And then, yes, and that's, this would
and the
show,
fence is even higher
they
than the
built
other.
this huge berm, and then they put the fence on, and then they added a foot, and I'm thinking, well, why, we're not different. If you just turned the camera right around from our backyard, they would have seen 3 other fences. And then there's, inside of our neighborhood, there's lots of them in there. I have some pictures. They're just not on Los Altos, that people have altered their, this is, okay, this is directly, in fact, this is one of the reasons we built our wall. I used to be able to see her in her kitchen doing her dishes from my kitchen. And especially at night, mostly if she was standing there. So she must have gotten tired of me seeing her there because they added this fence here. I don't know if you can see, but it's actually attached to the development fence where we built ours inside. And it was, that's the berm, that has the big berm that they built, their fence up on top. Ours doesn't have a berm, it's, our fence,
Ours starts below the level of our house even.
yeah.
Leave that one up.
Well, I'm not gonna leave it, oh, this is,
That shows you,
yeah.
may I make a statement now? Interrupt?
Well, I'd like to finish.
She talks a lot, I'm sorry.
No, I have these things that I'm trying to show you. Fence 1 block down from us. This was on Los Altos, and this looks like it's maybe 1.5 feet. They're a little taller. And it's actually on the, right by that other house, there's 3 houses, and then it's there. So there, we are not the only fence in the neighborhood that has done something different to their, and this is the one that's not on Los Altos. This is a very long one, big area, and it's just maybe a road or 2 inside the development, which they don't even have the problem we do because they're inside where it's a quiet neighborhood, or, then they don't have Los Altos coming at them. And then I wanted to read, this is the letter, and then you can talk. This is from her name is Renee Duff, and I don't know, she goes, my name is Renee Duff, and I have lived at 1166 Glendora Lane in Spanish Springs for 24 years. My backyard faces Los Altos between Vista Boulevard and Sparks Boulevard. I originally purchased in 2000, which is the same time we did. We just never met. We've seen them walking their dogs, but we did not have much traffic, and there was not much noise. It has now become extremely loud and a voyeur's dream. I have friends, ex-boyfriends, and family tell me they can see me cooking in my kitchen. Now, she's on our same side, so it wasn't the person that I saw. And she said that, she goes, someone asked why I had my Christmas tree in a specific part of the room, what kind of gathering I'm having in my home, because they can see right into my home. The music from the driver's car stereo blaring shakes my window so badly and sounds like it will combust and scares my pets. I have called several times to ask when, if the city plans to erect a brick wall for our safety, and have been told it's not in their plans, and to contact RTC. With all of the new buildings happening, it's going to get even more congested and invasive. Something needs to be done about this immediately. It's not safe. Thank you for your time. It's Renee Duff. She sent me the text. I just kind of took a screenshot and made it and then she sent that one picture. So Oh, I wanted to also say that our neighbor to the east of us tried to sell their house last year, and they had it on the market, and she sent me their listing activity report, and there were 20 complaints when they were doing showings.
Prospective buyer complaints.
They said, they loved the house, they said, I liked how you staged it, this and that. And I guess whenever anybody would show them, they would give like a report on what they thought about the house, if they were interested or not. And there were 20 fairly similar about the noise, the privacy, that if they came down a lot in their price, maybe $100,000, they might be interested. And I'm like, so we're all penalized for us that face Los Altos and the houses inside the neighborhood that don't have that same, plus we have the smallest backyard. Even though they say they're similar, our house is bigger than the one next to us. And when you stand there, their house is set back, so they actually have more yard. We have 20 feet from our door, sliding dash door in our kitchen to the end of the fence. And he probably has 2 more feet because he's got a smaller house. The other 2 houses are the same plan as we are, and his house is also lower. So it's not necessarily placement. I would have rather bring my front of the house and have not as big a front yard and have a bigger backyard. There was one more picture in here, and since these aren't in my order, I don't know what. Man, I don't know. They, I can't, since they're not in my order, it's really hard for me to figure out. But anyway, then the house to the west of us, he tried to sell his house about 5 years ago, and he came across the same thing, that people were not interested because of the noise and the traffic. And so we're gonna be all looking at someday trying to sell our house, and we're gonna be penalized because of, they didn't plan that they would have that much traffic coming through that little block, that little narrow spot in the road. And so they should have built a brick wall, and they should have put a berm, and we're all paying the price for it. We are, because this just arguing and trying to keep our fence is gonna cost us about $3,600, because we're getting charged $120 an hour for every bit of time that they spend trying to tell us we can't have a fence or privacy. And then who knows, if you don't allow us to keep this, what it's gonna cost us to cut down the fence. And then they said we could grow vines or something then on top of it. And I don't know what that's gonna look much better. We had vines on our other fence, and all we did was get rats and other weird animals. When we took it out, it was full of vermin. So I guess.
John Sands, my basic complaint is the Planning and Zoning Commission back in the time and in the day, they had all the information about traffic and what was gonna come in there. And they narrowed the major arterial roadways on both sides of us, but not on our street. And so the traffic gets jammed down from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. And they didn't allow enough property to actually make that street wider or to allow for that. And if it was a major arterial roadway, the subdivision there, what they supplied and was approved, would have had to, build a taller block fence in our backyard. And so they didn't plan for it in the first place. And if you just look at all of the houses on the other side of Vista Boulevard, up on the upper side of Los Altos, Spanish Springs, and all of those residences, all of them come down our backyard, and they go to Costco, Walmart, Home Depot, restaurants, financial institutions, tire shops, and they all come jamming through our backyard every day, and it's horrible.
Or just to get to the pyramid.
And we've actually had somebody come by with their boom box, a kid, and it rattles our windows in our home. And then when a truck comes by, they were knocking the trees and looking right into our bedroom or our kitchen. But what was my main point? I kind of lost sight of it. But if you look at our fence compared to some of these atrocious fences that are already in the city of Sparks, but nobody's complained about them. That's a picture I wanted to leave up.
There, this
No, that's another one. That's a nice looking one that's built above the thing. But all of this traffic, if they'd have done it correctly in the first place, we wouldn't be sitting here. We would have had a block wall.
or berm.
And I have a side note.
Okay, just a second. I was gonna say something and then I thought I had stopped.
I have a certificate of recognition signed by all of the Sparks City Council members. I was a member of the Sparks Railroader.
It's funny when you
I
have
was
the
a zone
kids here.
champion of 1966 for Sparks High School. I was a member of the team. Yay.
He's been going through albums, has happened when you get old. You start looking at old photo albums when you're young, and he was the football captain.
Is there anything else you want
I
to
wanted to,
provide us?
We're just hopeful that you will give us the major deviation of a foot and a half, so we have some privacy in our home.
because you told me to, hang on. I guess my whole thing is the process is that instead of having something anonymous, that someone can just complain and not really work with you, why, because I asked this in the very beginning when we were starting this process, I says, is there something, some way, I know you can't tell us who they are, but can you work with them and ask them, what can we do to make it not, and at that time, I didn't know the actual complaint that was blocking their view. I still don't know why someone, if it was a view of some mountains that I was blocking or some view of the lake, I could understand if you put a big wall up, but not of your own kitchen, your bedroom, and your family room, where that's where we spend most of our time. Because our living room, of course, faces the front. So yeah, I guess we're done.
Do you have any questions from the council? Anyone? Oh, Ms. Vanderwell.
It was
For staff, okay. Okay, we don't have any questions from the council. We'll bring Danny Ray back up, and if we have questions for you, we'll call you back up. Okay, Ms. Vanderwell?
Hi, Danny, thank you. I know this is located in a planned unit development. Are they also governed by an HOA?
Kylie Ranch South dissolved their HOA many, many years ago, so no,
Okay.
there is no active HOA.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Dare?
So, to me, I obviously, I mean, I've driven in that area a lot. It's my ward, and it's something that I look at all the time. And can you just, you kind of mentioned it, but just talk about it for a moment. The one thing, though, people do things that maybe should not, and it's done across the way, and it's something I sympathize with in all this whole conversation. And no matter what, I want to find a way to help. I don't know that how to help in this situation fully, because I think that we have standards that are in place. Like it or not, we have somebody who complained. They may not come out and tell a neighbor that they complained, but so that process that we go through is to protect our community and the things we have. And so truly, if it looks at other fences around there that are like that, it's just because someone hasn't complained. That's really what we're dealing with. Can you speak to that?
Councilman Dare, that is correct. Our code enforcement is complaint-driven. They don't go around, driving around looking for fence violations. So if there's a complaint,
Can you
they
move
act.
that mic closer to you, please?
Sorry, my voice is starting to, give me just one quick second. So code enforcement is complaint-driven. Typically, it's a residential complaint for something like this. Our code enforcement officers do not drive around the city looking for these kinds of violations to cite. It's only if they receive a complaint do they act.
And are there any other fences that we've ever seen get allowed to be able to be higher in this area or zone? Is that a thing that we've seen happen?
Not in Kylie Ranch South, which of course is its own plan development with its own development standards. In other parts of the city that are regulated by the Sparks Municipal Code, it very well could have happened, but not in the 5-year tenure that I have here. I'm not aware of major deviations being permitted.
Mr. Rundle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim Rundle, City Planner, Council Member Dare.
Turn your mic on, please. Turns green. It goes green when it's on. There we go.
Councilmember Dare, my tenure is a little longer than Planner Ray's, and we have not seen a fence go above 6 feet in a residential zone. What Danny, I think, is referring to that is not applicable in this situation is in the industrial area, if you put a barbed wire, or in the public facility, if you put barbed wire at a school or something to that effect, a well site for TUMWA, you are required to put in an 8-foot tall fence so that someone can't walk on the sidewalk, reach up and grab the razor wire, barbed wire. But in residential, it's very consistent across the entire city that the maximum would be 6 feet.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, it seems, really what we have to look at here is, and, I mean, our heart goes out to the story without question, but we have no choice but to look at the codes and what's there. And I don't see how we get past MD4 or MD3, or, you know, I understand why the planning commission did what they did. And so that's, for me, as much as I think I'll do my best trying to find another way to help these lovely people that I would like to get to know a little bit more. But I can say on this, I don't see any way to support the appeal, so.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, there were some comments made about an RTC sound wall. Those don't go over a 6-foot height either, do they? Typically, if it's in the residential neighborhood?
They can.
Thank you, Councilman Anderson. So sound walls could go over 6 feet?
John, identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Assistant City Manager John Martini. They could go over 6 feet. Along the freeway, you'll notice they're huge. If you'll recall from the process we went through on Audie, the Audie Wells extension, a sound study is done. It follows federal guidelines that determines how the sound wall is constructed.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Spivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was part of my question. If a sound wall were to go there, what the limit would be on that. I'm looking, Danny, that you talked about a major deviation request allows up to a 50% deviation. And that this deviation is 22% of what they have done, not requested. And that's part of the problem too. And people don't know that. You know, they do work on their home. They do things that they don't realize they're supposed to get city permitting for. A lot of us do. We don't. Not everybody knows that. So I don't think it's intentional that people, you know, do work that should have had city approval and they just didn't know. But on the, but what it says on the major deviation in our presentation here is it allows up to 50%, and this is 22, and that the impacts to surrounding uses. Can you clarify that a little bit on impacts? How do you define, I mean, that's kind of that's that for me to put my arms around what is, you know, what would be impacts to surrounding uses? I mean, does this have impact to surrounding uses of the homes alongside, or is it more aesthetic?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Bybee, Danny Ray for the record. Impacts that we would look at for something like this would be health, safety, things like that, but also sort of maintenance of property value, aesthetics, visual impacts. It's one of the reasons why we require landscaping between incompatible uses, things like that, because there's visual impact to that we want to mitigate. In this case, the Kylie Ranch South Development Standards Handbook is so specific in its development standard, and it was a single permit for the entire fence, that is very consistent in design all the way through. We had to look at that. So if you are a resident who purchased a home within the Kylie Ranch South Plan Development, you have a reliance on that handbook and those standards when you purchase that home. So by allowing this major deviation with that aesthetic appearance, I think that goes in conflict with that reliance on that handbook in terms of the impact to the other residents. It impacts the, if I use air quotes, the niceness of the community, the consistency and uniformity of that fence.
Okay, and then in reference to the photos that we saw on your drive, and we saw a lot of panels that were different colors, are those out of compliance with what the standards of the fences should be right now? And would anything, because it would require a complaint, but in essence, panels that are different colors, and sometimes it's newer wood too, you know, so how is that enforced at all? Or once again, is it complaint-driven by code enforcement? If you had fences in my neighborhood across the way or anywhere that was out of compliance, whether it was an addition or something else done to a fence, would require, even though it was out of compliance with Kylie Ranch South, it would require a complaint for the city to take any action, correct?
You are correct. It would
Okay.
take a complaint. Technically, they are out of compliance because of the specificity within the handbook. It literally states brown, so they aren't brown.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Vanderwall.
So as a former planning commissioner for the city of Sparks, and I did many of the amendments to the plan development, I can't support this because it is in the planned unit development. Was it explained to the applicants that they could put in for an amendment of the plan unit development code book?
That is something that was discussed in the plan review meeting with them, that would be the appropriate way to address this issue, is to amend that handbook and amend that development standard.
Because my concern with this is if we do this, we've set a precedence and we've gone against what we've already approved. So,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, well, with that being said, you have anything more to add, ma'am? Come on up here so we can hear you.
Okay, you can stay there. Michelle Zenz, about us amending the handbook, I've never heard that. We have an option to do that? How do you do that? Where the handbook,
We can discuss that with
Okay,
you
I thought she
afterwards,
said
but
she
yes,
brought
that
it
is,
to
that
us.
is absolutely an option, and it is absolutely something that we do on a regular basis.
because if somebody were to come, like somebody put a flashing thing there, and lets everybody know that the speed, I don't know if it's got a counter on it, I haven't driven that way, to see if it tells how much traffic is there. But if people come and look and go, oh man, we really messed up this little 3 blocks of street to all these poor residents, because I know that there's more out there. I didn't go knock at everybody's door, but I know that the other two, they all do not like the noise or the lack of privacy. And when we talk about bringing the value down, actually, I think someone would rather buy our house with our backyard than the other 3 that don't have a fence, that would listen to the noise. And I think our value would be up because we address the problem of having privacy on a noisy road. So I kind of have to argue that, but.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
John Zenz, does the city council, as a city council, and we applied retroactively for a major deviation, does the city council have the authority to grant that major deviation?
Good question for our attorney.
City Attorney of Sparks.
Sir, are you asking whether or not what you're offering right now, the council has the ability to weigh in on? Is that your question?
Yes. Why are we here if they have no authority to grant the major deviation?
Well, we do have the
Yes.
ability
Yeah,
to
you
do
do
that.
have the
The
authority.
So
answer-
you could grant that major deviation if the council so sees it fit, and that it's a major deviation that's less than half of what is allowed, correct?
Correct.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Dare?
I would just finally say that though there's things that we're allowed to grant, it would potentially cause very large issues on some granting of things that set precedent things. Has to be another way to approach this. And so, I don't know how a vote will go. I can't say that, but I would say that no matter what, I'll have my card for you. And I'd like to talk to you afterwards if you don't mind, no matter how this goes. Just know that but there's ramifications to any decision we make. So just say that loud. Thank you.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, with that then, are you good, Danny? Okay. I'm looking for a motion then.
Public hearing first.
I did a public hearing already.
Sorry. That was a while ago. I'm
Yeah.
losing all
I'm-
track. I'm the oldest one up here, so sorry.
No, but I'm the one who forgets public hearings all the time. All right, so I am looking for a motion. Mr. Dare?
This is my ward, so I'll do it, but please take me up on my offer. I move to affirm the Planning Commission's denial of the major deviation, MAJ 23-001, associated with PCN 05100, to increase the maximum fence height 6 feet 4 inches. Let me make sure I'm just right. Square foot, 6,127 square foot, site located 1186 Glendora Lane, Sparks, Nevada.
Gonna read that one more time for
Sure,
me,
I will.
please.
I was making sure I was reading right. I move to affirm the Planning Commission's denial of the major deviation, MAJ 23-001, associated with PCN 05100, to increase the maximum fence height from 6 feet to 7 feet 4 inches on a 6,127 square foot site located at 1186 Glendora Lane, Sparks, Nevada.
Thank you. Ms. Vanderwell?
Second.
Had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Let's move on to public comment. Ms. Pam Dar. You stuck around. Thank you. Now, did Renee leave? She left? Okay.
She asked me to take up the person that offered coffee, though, so she wants to take you up on that.
You had two.
Got it.
You had two.
Okay. Okay. Pam Dar, I'm tired. Thank you, Mayor and fellow City Council. I wanted to make sure I had the facts straight. I wasn't trying to do a gotcha or anything. This lands bill's been talked about for a while, and I understand that. I was dealing with COVID with my mom in a group home during a good portion of that. So it was difficult to get into meetings, even when I had to call in to the legislature and all that stuff. So it wasn't normal time, so please give us grace when we question things as the public. But these are current things brought to me. This is why the senators drafted the letter. I've only crunched time making phone calls, trying to understand I'm on the right track. I understand the need for more room for this town, believe me, I've lived here since '87. I took a tour of TRI with Lance Gilman and my brother. It was only a few hundred people then. We're thousands of people now. So there is a need. I understand that. My biggest concern is the BLM land and the change of how they're defining that land, from multi-use to conservative use, locking it down. These stock market companies looking at messing around with our BLM land and investing. I mean, there's concerns, and I'm sorry, I forgot the term. I'm getting tired, but that's in the letter. Those changes are being brought in front of the SEC in August of this year. I'm no expert. I made phone calls. I said, does this pertain to us? And I was informed it is, from the senators that signed that letter. So that was my concern. I didn't mean to come across negative. You guys have done a lot of hard work. I understand the need. I'll be out of here in a minute. And I want to thank everybody for their hard work. My concern is to make sure that's us, that's Nevada, that BLM land, the multi-use. There used to be places to go out and shoot and take your dirt bikes. As it is, I had mopeds to ride around, and where we live, people go so fast, I had to get rid of them. So our lives are changing, you know, we are changing, but the open space is so valuable, and the public deserves to know who's gonna own it. Is it gonna be China? Or is it gonna, I'm just kidding. If it's going into the stock market, and if it's gonna look as an investment, and what they're talking about, there's that concern, because they mentioned international. So that's why I want the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And this is new information. And I might be off the mark. And that's where the coffee comes in, you know, sit down and have coffee. I just want the, you know, if changes are happening, we should do this right, not rush, and do what's best for everybody. That's all. And thank you. I didn't know you guys did long meetings. Oh, my gosh.
I'm gonna encourage you to call my office, set an appointment, and let's sit down and talk. And I'll invite Paul or Christopher, either one. And it is so hard to explain the multifaceted pieces to this puzzle that you cannot do it in a 10 or 20-minute presentation. So there's a lot to it. And throughout this entire process, trust me, that I have worked my butt off for 6 years, not just 2 years.
That's why I understand.
6 years, a long time.
I wasn't trying to knock anything.
No, but it's, I understand you don't know what you don't know. So, and I want to help to educate.
Yeah, I just know this is new. And I know you guys have worked your tail off, and I know the need.
Right.
I saw it. There was, what, a couple hundred employees out there 20 years ago? Now there's
30,000 employees
30,000.
out there now.
And families, yeah.
Yep.
I understand.
Okay.
But this thing, I'd like to
Please take me
understand
up on
this
that.
stock market SEC. This is
I
what I
didn't
want
get
to.
a chance to read what you brought us, but yes.
I haven't seen this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks for all you do. And
All
yes,
right.
coffee and meeting and.
Please do.
Thank
We can serve coffee in the mayor's office too.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public wishing to speak at this time? All right, announcements from the mayor, city council. So, Bill, raise your hand higher next time.
I'm coming.
Yes, I want to go back to general business, 9.1, CV 23-00458. I want to thank you all for your negative vote on that. I really do. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else in the public wishing to speak at this time? All right, let's go on to announcements from mayor, city council, city manager, Mr. Chief Manager.
I am going to make a shameless plug using our million viewers for our partners at Northern Nevada Public Health. They are seeking 2 applicants for their air pollution control hearing board. Applications are due by January 31st, and you can look at Northern Nevada Public Health's website and apply there. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
Yes, sir. Just wanted to happen to mention that tomorrow is Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. I noticed that we only have one law enforcement individual here at the moment, but I just want to make sure that we recognize and thank them for all the work that they do. And likewise, I want to put a plug out for an organization by the name of COPS. It's Concerns of Police Survivors. These are folks that have lost their family members in active duty or line of duty incidents that put together 5 pallets worth of baked goods to deliver throughout Northern Nevada. So that Northern Nevada organization did all the work, except they have enlisted the help of some to help deliver, and one of those is the Great Basin Chaplain Corps. So from Reno Sparks to Elko, Hawthorne, every law enforcement agency is being recognized and thanked for the work that they do. So just wanted to put the plugs out for them, and great job, law enforcement.
Okay. Anyone on the council have anything? No, Dare's out of the room, so,
Close it quick. Close it quick.
all right, nothing from the mayor, so we're adjourned.